Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's just like I just saw you people, just not even what 2 hours ago.
I know, right? It's so uncanny.
I know the power of the interwebs and scheduling. That's what I have to say. This is Starlight Beacon Transmissions live. This is our live show. This is episode 74 between audio and our live shows. So we're getting up there. We're getting up there. Um, my name for a second there, I forgot what my name was because it's just been that type of a day. My name is Eric Mitchell. I am your host. Actually, I should say one of your hosts because tonight you are all my co-hosts. That's what I'm gonna say. Yes. I have an amazing group of people with me again. Some of you saw these people earlier. Some of you have seen these people before, whether it be Star Wars Celebration, other Discord servers, our live show, what have you. We are all together, and we are talking about the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy tonight.
Our favorite
We love
blueberry.
Blink. Our favorite.
No, 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 no. I always have to throw that twist in there.
Yeah.
Like
As
like
you can
Faye
see, I'm wearing
expects
my
it.
Thrawn shirt.
Yes.
Yeah, all of
Faye
us are repping.
yeah.
The throat, if you will.
Yeah. Faye expects me to just throw a curveball in the topics of what we're talking about. Like last week when we did Andor, I was like, "Yeah, it's about the Book of Boba Fett." And everybody went, "What? No, really?" And I was like, "No, we're talking Andor." Like everybody thought for a second I was serious about it being about the Book of Boba Fett.
See, I do think if you do an Ascendancy episode, you should invite me, and I can just make up random shit and see what sticks on the wall. Because I've never read the Ascendancy, I haven't read them yet, and so I
See,
feel like
Okay.
I'd be like, "Oh, I love it when Thrawn like goes to a club and people it just throw stuff out there."
So
see, I could
that
just
kind
talk
of
about the
happened.
exploration crew.
See, that's why
Exploration.
exploration myth Ted Lasso
Yes, Myth Ted Lasso.
was a
Um,
It's
fun like
Fernando.
2 days on Twitter.
yes. Let's not make fun of my boy Ted Lasso. Faye
No,
knows how
I
much
love
I
myth
love
Ted
Ted
Lasso.
Lasso.
I love him. I invented him for people like unawares. There's a whole thing on Twitter. People made their own like
I'll have to
Chiss
check that out.
crew. I
Yeah.
did. It had like 80 something people by the end of it.
Oh no,
It was
it's
It was
insane.
over
over
100.
100. Yeah, it's over 100 characters.
Holy shit.
And it is in fact the worst crew in the entire Chiss Ascendancy Navy.
So you could
Yeah,
But
have
that's not what we're
I
talking
did
about
myth Ted
today.
no,
Lasso.
no. You
No,
could
it's not.
have Myth Ted Lasso because that does that mean
Yeah,
that you could have Myth Roy Kent?
yes, you
Yes.
could.
Yes. Okay.
There were some good ones on there too. There were some. Hey, were you the one you did the Pantoran with an eye condition? Was that you?
Concrete, that was me.
Yeah, bonk. I did one that was I forget what his it was like Kobo your mom. Um
Yeah.
we made some it was a fun time on
But
Twitter.
that's
So
not what we're here to talk
no.
about.
Thank you, Leah, for
Yeah.
getting us
No,
back
it's
on
not.
track. Um, this is our High Republic special. Tonight, we are going to be diving in and spoiling Phase 1 if you've been living under a rock for the last year and a half, I guess you could say. And then we're gonna yell at Claudia Gray and we're gonna yell at Kevin Scott. Um, we're gonna yell at
I
Daniel
forget Daniel
Jose
Jose
Alba.
Older.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly
So true.
for Trail of Shadows. Yeah, we got to
Mm.
yell at
Yeah.
him for that. And we're gonna yell at Charles Soule for what he did in Light of the Jedi.
We're
Let's
just gonna love Justina Ireland.
Justina
yeah,
Ireland, you
yeah,
get a
yeah.
pass
We're
today.
gonna give her all the love.
Justina, you haven't done anything
Just
wrong to
Justina,
any of us.
Opinion will change probably on Tuesday.
Probably.
Oh, she's gonna
probably.
wreck us with Path of Deceit. Oh,
Mhm.
she
We're
I
all
mean,
her
ready
we've
and
to
known
Tessa
go.
that.
are just
Yeah.
like
We've known that since we knew who the authors of this book
so.
Yeah.
were.
So,
Yes.
real quick before I introduce our guests, uh, we uh, we have already called our therapists to set up appointments, right? Okay.
We're all
Um,
prepared.
Yes.
okay, cool. This is our High Republic support group, so um,
Mhm.
I will be messaging all three of you once I go through this book. I have a feeling that tears are going to be flowing.
Mm.
Right.
Uh,
It's
Fair.
probably going to be like it was for me with Midnight Horizon, where I got about a third of the way through the book and then cried the rest of the way through.
Yeah,
No, I
I'm gonna.
I had to stop reading Midnight Horizon because I was like, I need to take
I
like 2 days
couldn't
away from
stop.
this.
I
Yeah,
couldn't stop because I knew that if I stopped, I would never have the mental fortitude to pick it back up.
that
I
was me with not Trail Shadow, Out of the Shadows. That was me with Out of the Shadows.
Ooh, that one
yeah,
too.
I couldn't stop because I was reading everything in preparation for the Fallen Star, and that was a mistake. I basically spent an entire week crying. At this time, at least,
But
it comes out midnight on Monday. I'm gonna read it that night, and then I go into my Star Wars Club meeting and have to run a club session.
but here's the
Oh,
thing, though. We uh, mm, we could all use a good cry,
We
We
could.
could.
true.
especially with everything that we've been through over the last couple of years. So,
Ain't that true?
yes, let
True.
me introduce this lovely panel of people that I have with me. Once again, I am joined by Faye, Leah, and Georgia, my three co hosts for the evening. Actually, you guys can come back and be co hosts whenever you want. I'm just throwing that invitation out there right
I
now.
mean,
I mean, I kind of am looking for a co host, just saying. Yeah. And
yeah.
and I think that this would be a good co-hosting team. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna regret that when we get into even more pun shenanigans. So
Oh yeah. If you missed the RPG show, we did spend like 5 minutes making puns with just
Drove
titles
me
from the High
crazy.
Republic.
I will
It
admit
wasn't
to
just the High
starting it, and I
Republic.
have no regrets.
No,
It
it
Plus,
wasn't
wasn't
just
just
the
the
no,
High
High
you did
Republic.
Republic.
Crash of Fate,
Yeah.
High Republic author.
And then I
So,
said
Mhm.
Black
It's
Spire
true.
Outpost.
Yep, you said
Yeah.
Blackfire
Mhm.
Outpost.
So speaking of puns, there's I handled the puns, right? So
good.
I can handle your puns, and there's only one other person that I can handle puns from, and that he's a member of our team here on the Beacon. He's not joining us tonight, but he is a member of our team. That's Joey McDermott. His puns can be really, really bad.
Mm.
Yeah, like bad, bad.
We'll
Um,
keep them fun.
Yeah, I believe that. So, I have a couple of announcements to get through, and then we are gonna dive right into the High Republic after we give our brief thoughts on this past week of episode of Andor. Just brief thoughts, saying whether you liked it or not. Um, so our announcements: no show October 15th, as my wife and I are out of town. We are on the Halloween cruise. So we're excited about that.
Mhm.
And then no show October 22nd, as I will be getting hammered at the Renaissance Festival earlier that day.
So fair.
Understandable.
Yes,
Understandable.
I need to
Valid.
blow off a lot of steam that's been building up. Um, and then let me see here. So our next show after that won't be until the 28th. Wow, that's insane. I think it's the 28th. Let me take a look now. The 29th actually will
Gonna say
be our next show. So we're gonna have 2 weeks without shows. I don't know how we're gonna survive. I don't know how we're gonna do it. Oh, also we are shooting for October 23rd. We are shooting for the return of Palps Peeps, which is our old Republic RPG. That takes place thousands of years into the past, but yet we're still mixing canon and legends. It's a lot of fun. Um, so there's that. Then we are. I'm almost done here. Um, we we are possibly going to do a show on December 10th. It depends on how tired we are after going to Ocean City Comic Con. My wife is actually selling her plush there. I will actually have to showcase some of her plush at some point. That way you all can see that. Yes, we're going back down to my hometown of Ocean City, Maryland for a 1-day con on December 10th. It's a wonderful show, wonderful 1-day show. And hey, if you are in the DMV area, that's the District, Maryland, and Virginia, for those of you that didn't know that, and you are looking for a small 1-day con to go to, head on down to Ocean City Comic Con. Even if you're not in the area, fly on up, fly out, hang out with us at Ocean City Comic Con. Um, $1 off your admission if you bring a non-perishable item going to the local homeless shelter, which that's awesome. You get to donate to a good cause and you get $1 off your admission. And if you are in costume, you get another $1 off your admission. So keep that in mind. Also, we are looking into another couple of cons for the 2023 con season. I just applied for a press pass at Farpoint, hoping to get into there. And then we also applied for programming at Katsucon down at National Harbor, and we're hoping to get into there. If not, we are going to be raiding and invading AwesomeCon in DC in June. That is your next big con, people, if you want to hang out. Um, I shouldn't have done that, but there's that. So, I think that's it. Yes. Okay. That is that. So, let's give our thoughts on Andor, and then we are going to breathe the collective breath before we get into the High Republic. So non-spoiler thoughts on Andor. Faye, then Leah, then Georgia, and then I'll wrap that up.
I really liked it. There's a lot of just subtle storytelling throughout, and I highly recommend you watch.
Yes.
It's
Leah.
Good. Very good.
Good. 2 thumbs up from Leah. That's a lot. And Georgia.
I mean, it's Andor is giving me everything that I wanted in Star Wars that I've never had. In terms of breaking like traditional genre. And I am loving it. I am thriving. I am shamelessly self-promoting. Andor cosplayers at Star Wars Celebration London hit me up at Keen Create on Twitter. We are organizing a group shoot at the train station where they opened the beginning of this most recent episode. So
Nice.
throwing that out there. Gotta self promo while I can.
Hey, no, you can self-promo all you want on this show. That is perfectly fine. Um, my thoughts, I love this episode. I got to tell you, the cinematography in this show is absolutely incredible. I love the smaller scale of the show too. And I got to tell you, I'm living for it. I'm thriving like you guys. And I am so I know this is going to sound really mean, especially with what we're about to talk about, but I love that we don't have Force users in this show. We actually have normal people in this show. Now, that could change later on in the season, and that could change in season 2, but I hope it doesn't because I really love how grounded this story is. Uh, and I'm glad Grogu isn't in it because Faye knows my thoughts on Grogu.
So fair. I have
very fair. Yeah.
I was with some other Inquisitor cosplayers at Celebration, and we had a running joke about stepping on Grogu. So fair.
You know what? Honestly, kind of want the kid to get stepped on.
That's what we were like. Listen, is it in character? Yes. Is it also just our personal opinions? Maybe.
I think it is.
When
But go ahead.
when will someone in Inquisitor cosplay video themselves making a green milkshake?
I'll talk.
With just the Minosaur, like on top.
Yeah.
And then just
Welcome
taking a
to the
big
live
swig
show.
of it.
Welcome to the
Yeah.
live show.
Welcome to the live show, everybody.
Georgia, that was at you directly, by the way.
No, literally, I will do it. I will. Emerald City plans are still forming, but if I am in Fourth Sister, I will do it. I will 100% do it.
All right,
Perfect.
so shall we get into our therapy session?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We shall.
All right. So tonight we are celebrating the High Republic because we are just a couple of days away from the launch of Phase 2. So excited. This is going to be amazing. We are going to get so much that fills in the gaps here. There's going to be a lot. So tonight we're talking about Phase 1 and then we're going to give a brief Phase 2 preview. And Pickle, get down. The cat. Sorry. Faye knows.
Yeah, we've seen my cats just getting all over the camera before Andor show. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that Andor show. um. All right. So so Phase 1 of the High Republic kicked off in January of 2021. It was, I believe it was a 6 to 8 month delay between when it was originally supposed to come out. It was actually supposed to come out in August of 2020, but due to COVID, Lucasfilm pushed it back to 2021. And let me tell you something, it could not have launched at a better time because we needed that during that pandemic. We needed that. It kicked off with A Light of the Jedi, written by Charles Soule. This book's a beast because it has a lot of groundwork to lay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it lays that groundwork in a very cinematic way that like captures you.
Yeah, it
Oh,
really it
definitely.
feels so much like a classic Star Wars film in like the best ways
Mhm.
possible.
Exactly.
It's like that's always my pitch to people when they're like, I don't want to read the books. I'm like, you don't understand because when they're done right, it doesn't feel like you're reading a book.
No.
Right. It starts in the middle of the action.
Hmm.
All of like the explanation of the world building feels very natural.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of stuff is left kind of unexplained, and like if you're just reading the adult novels, it's like, oh, cool, it's just this depth to the world. Not everything has to be explained.
Mhm.
But if you're reading all of the High Republic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of what Charles Soule does is he actually introduces every key character from each like I don't want to say genre, but from like each level of story. So like he introduces Buryaga, who's the protagonist of all the children's books. He introduces Vernestra Rowe, who's the protagonist for Justina Ireland's young reader books. Um, he doesn't introduce Ram, which is fine because Kevin does. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Faye.
And he introduces Wreath through the eyes of Yora,
Yeah.
which is very
Yes.
Yes. Um, and then Wreath will be the star in Claudia's novel, and then he also introduces our. It's really interesting. We get a trinity with each new Star Wars story.
Mhm.
So we get this trinity of Stellan, Avar, and Elzar, and Stellan isn't really in the first book at all.
He's just mentioned.
I think he's at the end.
Yeah.
At the
Mhm.
Starlight
Yeah.
dedication ceremony. Um, but let's talk about this book a little bit. This opens at Leah. You hit the nail on the head. It opens right in the action. Like this
Yeah,
this book goes hard at the beginning.
it does.
Yeah.
I remember. I don't remember what it was in, but I remember reading the just the very opening of the book, the Legacy Run disaster from the Legacy Run's point of view, reading it as like a preview,
Hmm.
and immediately I'm like, this is like an action. This is like a disaster movie. It's
Hmm.
so. Immediately, I'm like, I need to know what happens next. I need to know the rest of this.
Yeah.
It was absolutely just a phenomenal hook.
Well, there's that, and Charles introduces some characters that he kills off really quickly, but
Really
you
quickly.
become real attached to him
Really
real
attached.
quickly.
So I remember like I was reading it and then I like got to the end of the preview and I was like, I'm sorry? Wait, I must have read that wrong. And I went back and I was like, nope. Okay, this book is gonna devastate me.
Hmm.
And compared to like half of the phase, it did not devastate me. Um, yeah, I think it just like a testament to like him as a storyteller and just like
Hmm.
how immediately in those first couple pages he introduces characters, kills them off, and you keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had genuinely like I started reading the book at work, and I
Mhm.
finished reading the book at the end of my shift. That's how good it was. It just kept me going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I genuinely think I stayed up till 3 or 3:30 right after it dropped, reading it for
Yeah.
the first time. And I remember like it was early days of COVID, and so I was like, there's nothing I'm like not gonna do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And I just was like hooked. And it was it's a read in one sitting kind of book when you don't mean
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Because that
Yeah.
released on a Tuesday. So yeah, I was off on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at that time. So yeah, I went to Barnes and Noble, picked it up, and then as soon as I got home, I just started going through it, and it was like mid Wednesday because like I kept taking breaks to like do other stuff,
Mhm.
but it was
Hmm.
by mid Wednesday that I had finished it, and I was just floored by the end. The neat thing is with the Legacy Run disaster and the Great Hyperspace disaster, I guess you could say now. Um, with the Jedi saving the Hetzel system, each Jedi gets like their Avengers moment, like
Yeah.
in this
Yes.
whole sequence, which is
Literally
really
sometimes down to the superhero landing.
yeah,
Yeah, literally.
with Loden.
I was gonna
Loaded.
say Loden.
Yes. But you're right. Like this is like it showcases the Jedi in such a unique way that we've never seen before. Yeah.
Yeah, like even unnamed Jedi, like we have the moment where one Jedi strains themselves so hard while trying to prevent a disaster
Hmm.
that they drop dead.
Yeah.
And that's something that like we don't know their name, we don't know where they were, we didn't know who they were.
No.
But like that sticks with you
Hmm.
because this is the Jedi at their height, what
Hmm.
they were
Right.
supposed to be.
And
And
yeah, go ahead.
another thing about the whole Hetzal Jedi all coming together thing is it showcased a lot of like the disparate parts of the Jedi that we see across the movies, across the
Hmm.
other books, across canon and non-canon media, where it's like, you get little pieces of, oh, straining yourself so hard in the Force that you just drop dead.
Hmm.
Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Um, you know, connecting all of the Jedi in the Force so they can better coordinate their efforts. Bastila Shan.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just a lot of these like it made it feel like, oh, this really is the Jedi at their height. They have everything at their disposal. They're doing everything they possibly can,
Yeah.
and it's just so fantastic.
It's so good to see.
Yeah. I
Yeah, and I think like
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say like adding on to what Leah said, just like I think like it really is like it felt for me. I was like, oh, this is what the Jedi should be.
Hmm.
Right before, like we'd seen obviously like in Legends content, we'd seen that, but it's very different in the Legends
Hmm.
sequels and in the Legends like the Older Republic. They were developed along with the prequels, and so it's basically like the same mentality of the Jedi
Hmm.
there that you see in the prequels. And so it was so great to like jump in and to like you're caring for these characters who are like maybe have a name and then die or don't even
Yeah.
have a name, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like there's such a cohesive whole that what's happening to one could happen to everyone,
Hmm.
but like that is what they should be, and they like are accepting of that sacrifice, and they're so willing to like literally go sacrifice themselves. It was just yeah, I like everything like clicked for me for Light of the Jedi with like what the Jedi should be, and I think that's like one of the wonders of the High Republic, is because like when they say Golden Age of the Jedi, like they do literally mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the Republic and the Jedi not at war. It's nice to see them like
Yes.
trying to do what they're meant to do, which is be peacekeepers and like one of my favorite things that's mentioned in this book as well as the other books in phase 1, the Jedi are not supposed to fight. It's
Right.
only a last second thing. What do we see during the Great Disaster? The Jedi don't fight at all. Like Loden and Bell bring their lightsabers out and they pacify that group by just not even swinging them.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah,
really interesting.
I think like one of the things that also like slightly moving into the dark a little bit.
Hmm.
Like I read Stories of Jedi and Sith very recently,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is like a little anthology again of like Jedi and Sith. And there's a Barris Offee story where it's her. First of all, if you haven't read it, it is quite emotional.
This
Um,
so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's essentially her be like wanting to stay at the temple and be a scholar and be a healer and being forced by the Jedi of that time to go out and fight. And
Hmm.
I think it was so interesting reading that and then looking back on the High Republic, particularly at like people like Reith, who like that's what he was allowed to do. And that's what all like Orla was allowed to go off and explore her own path and she wasn't being forced into anything. And
Hmm.
like again with like the Hetzal disaster, like they all went there of their own free will.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day they walked away being peacekeepers.
Hmm.
And not and like in the comics as well, like Avar gives people a choice to go with her on these missions
Yeah.
that may involve violence. And I think like it's just so the parallels are like actually heartbreaking. But just I Jedi being able to do what they're passionate about is just something that can be so personal,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
um, and just is so wonderful to see in this phase. Is
Yeah.
that like they're not just fighters?
Well, there's that, and then there's also they're trying to stay out of politics too. Like the Jedi
It-
Right.
want to do their
yeah.
own thing,
Hmm.
and you see
Hmm.
them start to get dragged into the political arena by the end of this book, especially with Lena So being involved. But even
Hmm.
Yeah.
then, Lena brings them in because of outside influences. At the beginning of the book, Lena's hands off on the Jedi.
Yeah. And
Right.
even then, like we get to see inside the council meeting when the Jedi are debating. When it when we're getting to the lead up of the Battle of Kerr, like,
Hmm.
are we actually going to get involved?
Yeah.
And even like they still haven't decided by the time that the ship is already there at the site of the battle.
Hmm.
That decision is made during the battle itself when they
Yeah.
realize, oh no, the Republic can't do this alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Like they'll work with the Republic,
hmm.
but they're not working for the Republic
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I want to go back to a point that that Georgia made just a little bit ago when you were talking about legends, and then we'll move on to a test of courage, and we'll also move on to Into the Dark here. But you made this point about the Jedi being at the height of their power and everything, and how peaceful these Jedi are. But that's the interesting thing because in the prequels, things are dark. The Jedi are very cynical and everything else. And it's really interesting to see the Old Republic. These Jedi should be at the height of their power. They should be trying to do whatever they can to uh, uh, have a peaceful situation or have a peaceful resolution to what's going on. But the Old Republic, especially the legend stuff, it's dark, especially from the Jedi perspective. Like, it's dark,
Yeah.
it's violent, they're fighting all the time, and honestly, we don't need to see that. We need, like, that's why I love this book so much because it's a breath of fresh air when it comes to the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I think.
really it
Go
gets
ahead.
into that heart of what Star Wars is in the
Hmm.
original trilogy, which is that hope is the key, and that is like the major thematic point of the original trilogy that like we don't see as much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think like hope punk as a genre is a thing that exists in retaliation to grimdark,
Hmm.
but Light of the Jedi is itself like fairly hope punk despite the fact that it is a disaster book.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it's um and even, as the fighting, or even as like things continue to get more violent across the across phase 1 of the High Republic, there's still so much that the Jedi are doing that isn't fighting.
Hmm.
Mhm.
There's still so much that is going on that has nothing to do with ever pulling out their lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much of the time, what they're fighting is they're fighting a problem rather than a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like jumping way ahead, like Mission to Disaster, like we literally meet a Jedi, my like Jedi Glove Shadow of the Era, Lissa, who her entire thing is like she doesn't like fighting with her lightsaber. She actively like leaves it behind,
Mhm.
and the Order is fine with that. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to be a soldier. You don't have to have it with you. And when she has to use it, she uses it and she puts it away and she really only uses it when it's necessary. And I think it's so interesting that like they're even allowing
Mhm.
Jedi to just like not carry their lightsaber with them.
Yeah.
Um because like Jedi and like as we've seen like previously that's your weapon is your life, right?
Yeah.
Um but they're free to not have that mentality and I think that's like so important.
Well, there's that, and I keep saying that, but uh, Reeth is the perfect example of a Jedi that would probably leave his lightsaber behind,
He
unless
is.
he was ordered to bring it with him. Um, I want to go to Reeth's character real quick before we get to a test of courage, because I'm doing this in release order real quick.
Right.
With Reeth, I a great comparison to him is Mill from Brotherhood.
No.
Yes.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
Reef and Imri both deserve comparison to Mill because
Yes.
Imri has the same emphatic abilities that Mill has, except
Hmm.
his affects him in a different way.
Yeah.
Which, man, neurodivergence as like the force sensitivity as like a way of like writing neurodivergence is a real thing in recent books.
Hmm.
And that's the best example. You have a similar ability, affects the person in a different way, and they have different symptoms of it.
Hmm. And my favorite thing about Mill before we move on here is Anakin encourages Mill to be her own person. Just like how Comac encourages Reeth to do his own thing too.
Mhm.
And Orla encourages Reeth to do his own thing, and even Dez in Into the Dark. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Um, but Light of the Jedi, action-packed book that ends on a cliffhanger with our boy Loden Greatstorm being captured by the Nile. Um, I cried and I almost screamed at Charles Soule. And
Um
I also want to say this: Charles has a lot of blood on his hands with this book.
He does.
Yeah.
Kevin and Claudia get a lot of the flack, but Charles started off with not so much a bang, more like
It was.
a 21
Yes,
gun salute, you
yeah,
know?
It was 21 guns.
so true.
yeah,
So
Uh,
true.
and
uh,
he killed like 100,000 people in one chapter.
yeah. It was probably actually in the billions. I
Well,
will say that.
when you get to Hetzel, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like for example, the most thematic one. Can I have my Yora Mali ramble?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. So, like, Charles kills many people in the Battle of Kerr because Marchion shows his his true villainy when he sacrifices hundreds of his men, an entire tempest, to destroy the Republic's troops. And one of those Jedi is one of our council members, Yora Mali. And she is the most similar into mentality as most of the prequel era Jedi, which is the perfect way of saying this isn't the era of these Jedi yet. She is not meant for this.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect storytelling way. And then we get into Stellan being on the council because of her death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say one thing about the Kerr, Battle of Kerr. R.I.P. Wet Bub.
Wet Bub, you were a bro.
You were a real one.
You're a real
Absolute
one.
Wet Bub
Wet
moment.
Yeah.
I loved Wet Bub. He was so great.
I love him so much.
Yes.
There's
there's
official art that I think is supposed to be Wet Bub floating
No.
around somewhere.
Oh.
I
I
need to
thought you
find
meant in
it.
space. I was like, oh.
Oh,
Too
yeah,
soon,
no.
Leah.
Floating around somewhere in the internet
I
is
think,
art of a Gungan Nile.
I think he's getting concept art in the art book.
Art book is gonna have a lot of concept art. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised. Yeah, that's.
Absolute Wet Bub moment.
Yeah.
Absolute Wet Bub moment. I mean,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I think it'd be really, really funny if we got Wet Bub concept art in the book, but not Elzar.
Yeah, like we really just have to keep Ron his thread
It's a bit
going.
at this point. Like we have to keep the bit going.
Do you know how upset Maggie would be without Elzar Man concept art?
But it would be funny.
Oh, it'd be
It
great.
would be really funny.
But we'd
Would be
never hear the
great.
end of it.
We
Never
would.
hear the end of it.
Yeah.
So yes, Light of the Jedi, amazing book. It establishes the Jedi in such a great light. We didn't even really talk about the Nihil. They're kind of pushed to the side a little bit in this book.
Right.
Because
The
of all the
Nihil
stuff.
in this book are...
They're in the shadows, which
Yeah.
is why it fits
They're
with
a
Into the
phantom
Dark.
menace.
Yeah, they really don't come off as a genuine threat until the battle occur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
At least for me, I was like, oh, it's impressive they did that, but like, okay, whatever. Oh, their masks are spooky. Okay, this Mark guy seems relatively cool. And then the second he's like, okay, you're gonna go sacrifice. Like, we're not sending backup. I remember literally gasping and having to put the book down. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Game changer. And then you get to the scene with Loden, and it's again, you're like, oh.
Him using the Force to torture Loden by torturing other people. I hate it, but it's so freaking brilliant.
So
It
good.
is.
And it's
So
something
smartly.
that has been like seeded in other places before and has been used since. It's the Kadavo art in the Clone Wars. It's the Grand Inquisitor's whole thing in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
KOTOR too, like, which I think is like not going back to my like constant KOTOR-ness, but I think one of the things that I love so much about the High Republic is it's so clear that they know their Star Wars and not just the canon.
Absolutely.
They are actively bringing stuff in from Legends, which is phenomenal. Which, like, yeah, like the torture thing, the forced torture thing. I think the very first time it appeared was in KOTOR, which, like, spoilers for a 20-year-old game. Your like PC gets captured, and like one of the options is the villain's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna torture your two friends, and since you're Force sensitive, I know you're gonna be affected by that.
Yeah.
And it's just like so cool to see bringing all that stuff in, like Lisa, like from Clone Wars, and it's just it's so clear how much they know their Star Wars, but they also know their other stories as well, which is I think one of the reasons it's so fresh, but also so.
It already fits into the world,
Right.
And it's how much they put stuff in from like the Old Republic and from Legends, and like gives those little nods back and nods to the history. That it's like, it's so irritating to people say that, oh, the High Republic is replacing the Old Republic, when no, they're actually like working to recanonize the Old Republic by talking about it as history here.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's the point I make to everyone. Is I'm like, they mention Mitra Surik, they bring back the gravity well generator from KOTOR 2,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like they bring back battle meditation, they reference Terrace as well as Rogue One did with like having these like historic bombings on the planet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if anything, it is building back up to recanonizing it. And that's my biggest annoyance with the argument that you see a lot, which is people being like, it's a recent Old Republic, and I'm like, it's recanonizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that they're replacing from the Old Republic is making Renestra Road the
Revan.
canon Darth Revan.
Yeah.
So true. It's so true.
But
That's a joke. We'll get to her later.
another
burn.
thing is that even like later on down the line, like Race to Crash Point Tower, Daniel Jose Alder mentions the Old Republic multiple times in that book. Like they mention just the Old Republic multiple times throughout all of these books. So yeah, if you're worried about it replacing the Old Republic, shut up and just read the books. If you're worried about it being too woke, then just don't read it at all. Just don't read it. Um, Anyway, let's move on. So we
Yes.
have A Test of Courage, which is Justina Ireland's young reader novel, which is being displayed by Leah here. Um, it's an incredible young reader novel, fast-paced. You can get through it in about 2 hours.
Mhm.
It's real quick. It's a quick read. But introduces Vernestra Rowe, Imri Kantaros, as well as Avon Staros, Honesty Weft, and Avon's droid J6. Thoughts on A Test of Courage?
It contains maybe one of my favorite lightsaber battles ever.
Oh, the one between
One of my favorite duels ever.
the one between Vernestra and Imri.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is emotionally loaded. It is. That's one thing about the High Republic, is because there's no Sith around, the only times that lightsabers get used in like a duel, like lightsaber on lightsaber, is when it's Jedi on Jedi or Lorna D.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I think, and like, I agree with Leah, like, it's so, Star Wars is so important when lightsaber battles have narrative significance,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
think is something that a lot of people forget is so intrinsic to the original trilogy.
Mhm.
And you see it in the prequels and in the sequels as well. It's not, oh, cool lightsaber battle, look here. Have weight and significance for the plot, and I think that is so clear in the High Republic, especially because there's no Sith.
Yeah.
When you see them having lightsaber battles, it is with each other, and it is for a very important reason. And I think
Yeah.
Test of Courage, like, first time I read it, I was like, like, I was okay on it. Like, I thought it was fine. And then I reread it again, and I was like, oh my god, this is doing so much. And the story it's telling, specifically about Imri and Vernestra, is so important.
Yeah.
And ties into the Clone Wars a lot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Test of Courage, um, just like Light of the Jedi, it starts off with a ship being destroyed.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about early Wave 1 with just ships
Rest
getting
in peace,
destroyed.
Master Douglas Sunvale.
Yeah.
You
I
were a
mean,
MILF, I
we
forget
know
it.
why. 'Cause
I mean, in fairness, Vernestra Rowe just is really bad about crashing ships.
Oh,
So
yeah, that's true too.
So
Vernestra-
We're gonna
true.
yeah.
get to that.
But
her and Anakin are just like ship after ship, they just destroy them.
Vernestra just says screw it, they grow on trees. Pretty much.
Yeah.
They don't.
Master
They grow on
Nubron
Corellia.
disagrees.
But yes.
But
Test
yeah,
of Courage.
I love when Star Wars allows planets to be weird.
Mhm.
I have a special affinity for what I call magic sauce planets, where the planet just has a magic sauce going on.
Yeah.
Naboo, Dathomir, Lenara, Wavo in this one.
Mhm.
Just, sometimes planets are just filled with magic sauce, and it just makes them so much more interesting.
Yeah, and I want to go to the Imri and Vernestra thing real quick here because that is the climax of the book
Yes.
is them fighting. Part of me now 90% of me is so happy that Imri calmed down and embraced the light and asked Vernestra to forgive him, and she does. But that 10% of me was like, what if this guy just goes full dark side? Like, I want to see him go full dark side and just be tortured by all these people's emotions.
I wouldn't be surprised if we got a little bit of that in phase 3.
Do I
Yeah,
go
I
into
wouldn't
my
be
Imri
surprised.
Kantaros is Darth Malik theory?
That would be amazing.
Okay, Imri on
He's
Starlight
the
Beacon,
Malik
think
to
about that.
Vernestra's Revan.
Like think about Imri and Starlight Beacon and tell me that doesn't really hurt and that's not gonna really screw up a kid.
Oh,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
he is going to go
Like-
downhill fast with that.
And we see
Yeah.
him control,
I mean, if he
improving
didn't go
on controlling
downhill
it.
like right there.
Yeah, if he didn't. Yeah.
Which
And
is-
I think it's so interesting that they really set this up now, and I have a pretty strong feeling what happened in this book between him and Vernestra is going to be relevant later on.
Oh, we're going to
Um,
get
es-
another Anakin Obi-Wan
yeah.
showdown with them.
He's been
I
walking
fully
the knife's edge for the whole phase.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think Starlight Beacon is the thing that's going to send him off.
Yeah.
Especially because we canonically know that phase 2 is going to talk a lot about other dark side force cults, which if Imri goes dark, those are going to be incredibly relevant, especially since we're also going to see Acolyte, which occurs after
Yeah.
phase 3.
That and maybe he is involved with the Sith Eternal at some point too. Like that would be interesting as well.
Yeah.
Really start to I think the thing that they need to do, especially with Imri, but they're going to do whatever they're going to do, and we're still going to be along for the ride, and we're still going to enjoy it. But the thing
Yeah.
that they should do with Imri is really start to go towards the unknown regions, especially with Imri and Vernestra, and really push Imri to Exegol.
Yeah. Also, could this be how we get a Chiss in the High Republic?
I really want to see Chiss
True.
in the High Republic, and so I had a theory about the Fallen Star. I thought that because they talk about a hyperdrive being on the station, and I thought that the Nile were going to sabotage the hyperdrive and send it into the unknown regions where Vernestra would become the first Skywalker.
Well, I think absolutely something is going to be relevant with Vernestra and her hyperspace visions. And
She
I
does
don't know
have the one last path.
Yeah.
also
does.
what I think it's so interesting to see because as we know from Out of the Shadows, her visions weakened and faded as she got older.
Yeah.
And that is a Skywalker thing.
Mhm.
And it feels so intentional because
Yeah.
we know everything they do is intentional. And
Yeah.
she has the Leah said, she has the last path, and I think
Yeah.
it's people that don't read the middle grade books are missing out on so much that I think is going to really be the foundation in phase 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The adult novels are going to build on what they're establishing in middle grade.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially because it's a lot of those younger protagonists that are on that list of missing, presumed dead.
Yep.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
A lot of the adults
I-
a lot of the adults have known faiths, and then it's
Mhm.
a lot of the young ones who have very unknown faiths.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I still can't believe how they really were like Biryaga is the point of view character for the children's books, and then did him like that in Fallen Star, and that
We're
is
gonna
how I
get to
know
it.
in my heart. Okay.
But yes, A Test of Courage is a great story about self-reflection and self-discovery on one of people. It establishes some great characters with Avon Staros and Honesty
Mm,
Weft. Um,
Hmm.
there's not
Love
really much
Avon.
to say about those two for now because
For
they
now.
take a
Avon,
back seat.
yeah,
Yeah.
she's
But
very Galen Urso flavored.
yeah,
She
I'm
Um,
pretty
is
sure that
very
Gala
Galen
does
Erso.
actually cite Avon Starrs' research in
Oh,
his
because
papers.
He
I
does.
read Catalyst right after I'd read Mission to Disaster for the first time.
Hmm.
It felt
Mhm.
like the fates had aligned.
Yeah,
Galen was covering stuff, and I was like, that's totally something Avon Saros did.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah, Avon
absolutely love these
in Honesty,
details.
My Beloveds.
mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's move on to which is my favorite book of Wave One. Uh, of Wave One, this is my favorite book.
Right,
This is Claudia Gray's Into the Dark. This book is like Aliens meets Pitch Black meets all sorts of fun stuff. It is literally a horror movie in space.
right.
That's what I call
Wave
this book.
one gave us a disaster movie, like survival
Hmm.
movie, and horror,
Yeah.
It's
and
so
it's
good.
so
Not to mention Kevin hit all three in his comic series.
Yeah, because
yes,
Yeah.
he is a menace.
Yeah.
Of
Um,
course.
and we'll get to the comic series here in just a minute. But yes, Into the Dark takes place during the events of Light of the Jedi, and it deals with our boy Reith Silas, the goodest of boys. Well, one of the
Best
goodest of
boy.
boys. Um,
Yes.
and we are introduced to, I think, the most interesting characters of the phase with Reith, Comac,
Hmm.
Dez, and Orla when it comes to the Jedi point of view. But we're
Hmm.
also introduced to three great characters that I absolutely love. We are
Yeah.
introduced to Leox Gyasi, who is 90s McConaughey in Star Wars.
Straight up. Yep.
all right, all right, all
Yep.
All right, all right, all
Right,
right.
all right,
All
all
right. All
right.
right. All right. All
And
right.
and in the audiobook, they give him a southern accent.
They
No,
do,
it's
and
so
I
good.
love them for that. And also
Yes.
his deep V,
Oh,
iconic.
he's got the V. He's got the V.
Whoever the Leox cosplayer was at Celebration, know we are mutuals. Don't know who it is. Their Leox cosplay, I don't know if any of you saw,
I'll have to check
had
it
it
like
was
the
out.
so
deepest
good.
V, and
It
it was
was
so I'm like,
so good.
this is what it was meant to be. With just
Nice.
the
Yeah.
deep cut.
I
Good
love
Zylan
it.
Graph wishes he could wear.
And then we're introduced to Affy Hollow, who's a great character. I think she's going to be more important as Phase 3
I think
unfolds.
so
Absolutely.
Great.
too.
Great. I
And
think a lot of the YA non-Jedi are gonna come back and be pretty important
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Phase 3.
and we got to talk about Mr. Steel Yogor himself.
Geode.
He is
Dude!
literally the hero of this book.
Literally.
He's the hero of
Literally.
everything that
He's
he's
the
in.
hero
He
of Fallen
is.
Star, like
He is the
straight up.
hero of Fallen Star.
He's the hero of Fallen Star. He's the hero of the Mission to Bilbusa arc
That's right. He
in
is.
Ah!
High Republic
Ah!
Adventures. He's the hero of
Into the Dark.
he's the hero of no, what's the story that Claudia wrote for the High Republic Adventures annual?
Oh,
What's it
Oh,
called?
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, the one
When
I
he
know.
is able to like finish the ceremony for them.
Right.
Yes. He is
He's
the
the hero of
hero.
everything that he's in.
Yeah.
True.
He I gotta tell you, this is not only like the scariest book in Wave 1, but this is also the funniest book in Wave 1 because of all
Hmm.
of the Geode stuff. One of my favorite moments, well, actually, I have two favorite moments involving Geode, and they both involve Reese Silas. The first one is at the beginning of the book when Reith goes to the mess hall and Geode is just sitting there, and like Reith tries talking to Geode, and Reith's just like, I guess he's just gonna sit there and just stare at me. Like, Geode doesn't do anything. The second one is when the explosion happens on the Amaxine station and Reith is about to get sucked out into space, and Geode just sits there, and Wreath goes slamming into him. And,
Yeah.
and Wreath's like, where did you come from?
He, this was the perfect way, like, perfect usage of him, too. Like, I talk a lot about geodes being the perfect way to prevent from having attention plateau, except for the Fallen Star, but I'll get into that later.
He's
But,
great
like,
in the Fallen Star.
he's the perfect way of, like, you inject comedy into horror so that way the scares get scarier. And Geode is a great way of doing that because you're just sitting there like, this is a rock, but he sleeps, he
Yep.
apparently talks,
And he parties.
Geode is also
and he
parties.
parties.
honestly,
Yeah.
like, Geode is such classic Star Wars. It really frustrates me when people are like, "Oh, there's a rock in the High Republic." I'm like, no, because you can't look at me and tell me George Lucas would not have like put a rock person
George Lucas
in the
put
back of the cantina
a
scene in A
dog
New Hope if
standing
he,
on
like,
two
thought of it.
legs. Yeah.
And you know
Yeah.
what?
Like literally, like it's so like the idea of just like a rock is so George Lucas original trilogy Star
Oh,
Wars.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You
Even
can see
prequel
that in
trilogy.
Geode. It's so yeah, even prequel trilogy, like the fact that you said this rock, who's this like womanizing navigator, is
It's
so
the perfect thing.
Star Wars camp. Like it's so Star Wars
Oh,
camp.
yeah.
It
And
really
he fits
is.
so
like,
well into this novel.
You mean to tell me that
Yeah,
he
he's
wouldn't
great.
be on the Millennium Falcon with Han Solo and Chewbacca?
No, he
Absolutely.
would like
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mean to tell me that George Lucas could have replaced Jar Jar and put Geode in the Phantom Menace? And made Geode a
Like, he
senator,
would've.
her representative.
E-
And that would have
Except
been
for one
amazing.
thing. Geode can't swim. He sinks.
So
Geode
true.
can't swim.
So true.
But you know what? Actually, Faye,
A good thing
you're
you got off Starlight
contradicting
then.
yourself because he can do anything apparently, which is what we're about to get into when we get to the Fallen Star.
Which is why it's so fun, is because they really feel like they were like, Geode can do whatever the hell we want him to. Is what makes his character a blast. What makes him so fun is because they just get to make up new rules for him and we get to go along with it. And never have to be like, that doesn't line up with canon, because there is no canon when it comes to Geode. He's just Geode.
All of Wave
And-
1 feels like the writers just like bashing action figures together.
Exactly.
I think,
Like-
yeah.
Go ahead, Leah, your thoughts on Geode and then Into the Dark.
Can't remember if it was in Into the Dark or somewhere else. But there's the scene where something bad happens and Wreath goes up to Geode and is like, that was really rough. And Affy just walks in like, he's not talking right now. He's very broken up over all of this.
I think it's Into the Dark.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's Into the
Yeah.
Dark. But yeah, that's great.
The fact that like Orla and Affy and Leox can understand him is just like,
And-
I'm
and that
building a
Tomac and
theory.
Wreath
Orla
never.
loves Geode. Orla loves Geode.
Can we talk about Orla? Because I love her
I-
and I am so sad about what happened to her in Fallen Star.
We'll get there.
I understand.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I love Orla. The second she was introduced, I was like, I love this unborrowed
Mhm.
woman. Leah in our D&D campaign knows. And just the idea, I think, of a Jedi Wayseeker is something that I've been looking for
I love
so
it.
long in Star Wars.
Huh.
It is great, and I think
Oh,
it
yeah.
really exemplifies this era in terms of the Jedi being able to pick their own
Absolutely.
paths.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But also it fits her character so much. And she adds so much to this book, especially as we see a Jedi like Wreath questioning what his path is.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
knows it's in the Order, but he doesn't know where it is or what he's doing. And you see Orla, someone who he goes is so confident in her path, and you get to see Orla be like, no, actually, I wasn't. Like, I really just did this to do it. But that's, how you discover if things work for you or not.
Yeah.
And I think she is such a perfect fit in this book, and I love her to pieces. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people came out of Into the Dark with a love for Wreath. I love Wreath. My love for Orla was number one in that
Because
book.
she's
Yeah.
such a strong character.
She
in this
is
book.
like,
Great.
she's such, she's so impeccable. And like, there are like, she's a way seeker. She does all of her own things. And there's something about her inexplicable ability to keep her robes entirely white that I'm just
Yeah.
like, I need to be you
So
for a
funny.
day.
And And
Yeah.
honestly, because we've made some prequel trilogy comparisons here and some original trilogy comparisons, I really feel like Qui-Gon Jinn would be a way seeker also.
Oh,
sh-
100%. Yeah.
absolutely. Like, if you've read Master and Apprentice,
Oh yeah.
you can tell right off the
If
bat.
you've read Padawan,
Yeah, Padawan, because even Obi-Wan starts to think about it too. Like
Yeah.
yeah. Um
And I think that's just so interesting to see like how this at the time of the prequels, this position did not exist.
yes.
And so thinking about back then, like, okay, like what made it no longer exist?
Yeah.
not only does it not
and-
exist, it seems like it's not even talked about.
No,
Yeah.
it's like a
Oh, yeah.
forbidden thing. Because when
It's
Obi-Wan
like
brings up Orla, it's like a hush-hush thing.
keep that one a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which
even
is so
Qui-Gon
interesting.
is like, what is this? What did she
Yeah.
do?
Like
I
even
wonder if it's
Qui-Gon
going to be
doesn't know.
relevant in Phase 3 or anything.
I think it will.
Absolutely.
It will.
I have my phase 3 predictions, considering I love how much they've teased in other content, and I think it just makes phase 3
Yes.
even more fun.
Yeah.
Also, with Into the Dark, we're introduced to the Drengir, who are some of the best villains that we've had in a long
So
time when it
fun.
comes to Star
They're
Wars.
so hungry and they just crave meat.
And I
It's
gotta
so
say-
fun.
Just space
It's
little shop of
fun.
horrors, and that's what makes it a
Yes.
blast. It's
Yes.
so there's like,
And-
okay, we're gonna have plants that are
Steeped
connected
in
to
the
the
dark
Sith.
side.
It's like
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. Just them
It's-
and I think the comics too contribute so well to
Oh, yeah.
the Drengir and
Oh,
And-
it's
Well, the
It's
where-
so
I mean
perfect.
the fact that
yeah.
also the fact that it's a anagram for red herring too
hmm
is
Yeah.
like that like that's
And the thing is,
yeah.
is that Cavan really makes them the villain of his comic. It's not
Yeah.
so much the Nile for like the first 3/4 of that
Ooh.
comic. It's the Drengir.
Hmm.
yeah, because the Nihil are easy. Like, let's be honest here. Like, the Nihil would be easier to beat, but they're sending spores of these
Mhm.
Drengir to other planets to
Mhm.
continue to keep the Republic off of their tail.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they literally draw Avar Chris, the thing that stopped them last time, away for something literally
Yeah.
called a red herring. If you read like, it's so genius, and I think it just speaks again to like how good this phase is with the Nile,
Yeah.
Yes.
because like you like and you finish Light of the Jedi, you're like, oh, that market guy is pretty scary. Then you go into the Drengir, you're like, oh, well, new things. So maybe the Nile are just some space pirates.
Yeah.
Then you go to Rising Storm and you go into the comics and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what's
Yeah.
happening, and it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's really well put together. The
Mhm.
way that like we have this thing distracting them so that the Nihil can become an even bigger threat than they
Right.
Well, even
seems to
then,
be.
it distracts the reader into thinking, like Georgia said, the Nile are just pirates. That's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that's all there is. So let's move on to one more comic here, real quick, because we've touched on Cavan's comic,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but let's talk about the most precious little people and
Oh,
how
babies.
Daniel Jose Alder wrote the hell out of this series. High Republic Adventures, this was the all ages comic from IDW Publishing. It's now going to be Dark Horse under Phase 2, but with IDW Publishing and Daniel Jose Alder, they told us the story of the crew of the Starhopper, which is a Jedi Padawan teaching vessel, which I thought was really cool. And it was nice to see Yoda away from the council
Mhm.
and doing
Yeah.
his own thing. Not to mention, we're introduced to Cantum Sai, who is a real badass.
They are
I
And-
love
my
them.
beloved.
Love them.
And we are introduced to Buckets of Blood.
It's a blur.
Buckets of
Yes,
blood.
yes, Buckets of Blood. Which I've never heard of a Jedi combat medic outside of the MedStar duology from Legends, and it's really cool to see like a Jedi combat medic.
It's so great, and just the
Yes.
fact that it fits in so well in this world. You're like, yeah, someone
Yeah.
would do that.
Mhm.
It's awesome.
And he happens to be a good baker too. But anyway, thoughts on High Republic Adventures before we move on to Wave 2.
Oh,
Yeah, so
I-
specifically like that first chunk of
yeah.
High Republic Adventures, Zine came
Oh,
closer than just about anyone else to killing Marchion Ro.
That was
I-
amazing.
I love
Girl
that
boss
part.
moment.
Yeah, that's
Zine in
perfect.
general in this is just so. I mean,
I
this is a
wanted her
starter
to
for
pull that
arc.
trigger so much.
This is the
I
starter for arc.
know.
This is, and I love that. You know, too old for training she is. You know,
Mhm.
she can't become a Jedi, but
But
you
Yoda
know,
keeps her
Kanto,
around.
they keep her around, and that's something that kind of continues going forward with High Republic Adventures,
Mhm.
and that's something that also reminds me of the to call back to what we mentioned earlier, the stories of Jedi and Sith.
Mhm.
The first story in that, What a Jedi Makes, is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's kind of this thing of like, so they'll just kind of take in strays and be like, you know
Yeah.
what, maybe you're not a Jedi, but there is still like a place for you with the Jedi.
Well,
Yes.
And that seems to be where Zine is going. Like, she's not a Jedi, but she's still very much accepted among them. And like,
even Stellan has that in the Life Day special.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like with the kid and his grandmother. Because he's
Mhm.
like, "Hey, stop, we're going to go to the temple and figure out what we can do for you." Yes. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Zine. It's
mhm.
also just
Mhm.
going back and revisiting that arc. Like, I just know it's going to be so relevant to Phase 2.
Oh,
absolutely.
And it's just,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
but you don't even need that relevance to
The
really
Elders
enjoy
of the
it.
Path.
yeah. There's
Marchion's magical girl wand.
Yeah,
yeah. See, we get a lot of stuff that's going to be relevant in Phase 2, and then at its core, the High Republic Adventures is about coming out.
Mhm.
And so we see in this first phase, in all the Phase 1 stuff, that we're seeing Zine as someone who, if you grew up queer in a
Mhm.
small town, it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
Or like, I had family that I couldn't come out to, and I've had to cut myself off from them
Mhm.
for the sake of being able to be myself. And so seeing that in Zine, seeing a kid who gets the support that she needs for that was so great to see.
Oh yeah. And for Cantum being non-binary and having Tarek and Sarek around there and Vernestra Rowe being asexual and all of these
There's
characters,
Jossie.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really like I think that you all hit the nail on the head here. Like when it comes to queer representation as well as queer allies,
Yes.
like
Mhm.
this opening wave of phase one is perfect because it's all wave one is about accepting who you are
Hmm.
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then moving and finding the family that accepts you for who you are as well. That's what wave one to me is. Yeah, it's got all these action-packed moments and all this other fun stuff, but it's not until like you get down to the nitty-gritty of what is going on with these characters that
Right.
you really embrace what wave one is about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what.
it's Elzar embracing his weird way of interacting with the Force.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
It's
um
Skier accepting his illness
Yeah.
and the fact that
it's
he feels guilty about surviving when his friend didn't.
Yeah.
it's uh realizing that like he's not going to have some path set out for him. He's got to figure it out for
Mhm.
himself. Um, yeah, it's all of those things.
Yeah.
And
And that's why I think like Keith's story to me hits so hard to jump into the other
Keith's-
comics to the
yeah.
main line.
Mhm.
Because I know there's a lot of speculation in the very beginning of the phase when we're introduced to her, like, oh, is she the same Master Trennis as is mentioned in
She is.
Jedi
is.
Lost? And it's so clear that she is,
Yeah.
especially with
So
the
clear that
fact,
she
like,
is.
the way you see her arc going, and the fact they mentioned the Nameless in there as well. Like, it hurts so much to see her in the early stages of these comics, like, be knighted and really accept who she is and find people that accept her for who she is.
And she's so
Then to
hopeful,
know that
and she's
something is
so
going to
She
happen.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it hurts. And her arc, I think, in particular, especially with how the origin story behind how kind of they came up with her as well is just heartbreaking. And I think she's maybe one of the most underrated characters
No,
She
she
really
is.
all of
is.
phase
Yes.
one.
Mhm.
She
And I
is.
think I can't wait to see where her story goes. And I think the opening of the comics with her trial to knighthood is some of the best Jedi storytelling in
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Oh yeah.
And it is so to the core of what Jedi are, right? And you see her not be punished, prioritizing other people over her own trial,
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, that counts, right?
Yep.
And just the selflessness of the Jedi, but also how she is a teenager dealing with anxiety and feeling like she doesn't belong, and how that ties so much into the High Republic Adventures comics as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Very different routes that they take by the end of those, you know, different comic runs where
Yeah.
those characters end up in very different places.
Oh yeah.
Which is so
Yeah.
interesting to see.
So let's go ahead.
And how she goes from port, and then Avar is the one leaning on her at the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's very circular.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So let's move on to wave 2 here, which kicks off with another bang. And if I ever meet Kevin Scott, he and I are gonna have words because of this book.
We had some words, Georgia,
have
right?
some words for each other. Yeah, have
Uh,
some words.
I've got to
we
hop
get
out for just 1 second,
yeah, go ahead. So we
Yeah,
but
go
feel
get
ahead.
free to start talking about
okay.
Rising Storm.
So we get The Rising Storm, which is the first adult novel in Wave 2. And this takes place a year after
Hmm.
Light of the Jedi and
Mhm.
the subsequent books. So Cavan Scott's run takes place over that year to a year and a half point between the Light of the Jedi and the Fallen Star. So we are uh, the Republic claims that they've beaten the Nile. The Nile are done. That's it, and they can move on with the second of Lena So's great works, which is the Republic Fair, because nothing bad happens at the fair.
Yeah, the first fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I love this book so much. Like this was my favorite book in Wave 2, actually. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it is such a roller coaster ride. Um, and I gotta tell you, it's also surprisingly funny with a
It's
lot of
so
stuff.
fun. It's
It,
so
it-
Yeah.
funny. Like,
I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. I just have Mark Thompson whenever I think about this book. Mark Thompson at 2 times speed, singing "We are one, we are
no!
many, we are me, we are you."
oh God.
I I read it the first time, and
Hmm.
when I was getting ready to go to Celebration, I had 2 weeks before talked to a friend of mine into going as Marcion with me.
Mm,
Marcion, you know who I mean.
yeah.
And she
Mark.
had actually not finished the. She'd only read The Dark and Light of the Jedi, and then the little bit of the comics
Hmm.
of the Adventures run. I was like, we have 2 weeks. We are catching up, and so we were like working on our little like projects. Obviously, like I was working on Lorna, she was working on Marcion. It was fit, and we got to the song. I remember having to like literally drop what I was doing because it is actually like it is maybe the funniest part, and it's only really funny if you listen to the audiobook. But
Yeah.
if you listen to the
It really-
audiobook, it is like you have to stop because it is so funny.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's
Fun
so
fact.
good.
Yeah.
So I heard about the High Republic while listening to RuPaul's Pod Race, and so they talked
Fair.
about hearing that at 2 times speed. So I had warning. Technically, I forgot about it when I was reading everything in the week that I was trying to scramble and read everything together before the Fallen Star. And so I'm driving. It is 3 a.m. I'm driving through the middle of nowhere, Texas, where I'm just seeing like vague fires from like the natural gas
Oh
mining
yeah.
stuff. And so like suddenly, like my parents are asleep in the back. It's my turn driving, and I get to that point, and I'm just like, I wake my parents up because I'm laughing so hard, but I can't
Nice.
stop because I have to drive.
Yeah.
It's genuinely
It's
so
such
good.
an annoying
It's
song.
It haunts
That's
you.
why it's funny.
It's like small world levels of annoying.
But that's the point of it.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I know.
somehow it is still playing on repeat throughout the entire disaster of the book.
Oh yeah.
That's what makes it funnier. It is my hot take is I went to Galaxy's Edge for the first time the day before Celebration. I had a great time. And I came away with it with one like major improvement I want them to make. And that is I want them to add a Star Wars Small World, but it is
Just
fair,
that
the Republic
song.
Fair song. And I think it would people would single-handedly be driven away from the park. And that's fine, because that would mean there would be a 5-minute wait time to get on that ride, and I could ride it over and over again until I lost my mind. And honestly, that's what I feel like Mark Thompson intended with that one.
They really should just like do that, except like as you're going through, you just see someone fighting Lorna D.
So true.
It's Orbelin.
I will save my thoughts talk about Oberlin until later. I have so
Yeah.
many Oberlin thoughts. The High Republic obviously has so many Oberlin thoughts. It's just maybe coming back, and I can't wait. Love that
So
little ball of gas and goo.
I just want to say this also. I love Elzar Mann in this book because my boy has a one night stand, and then when the fair gets attacked, he's doing the frickin' walk of shame while also trying to defend himself.
Like, even worse, he's like, something terrible is going on and I can't find my pants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is
Like,
yeah,
It's like
so
the
good,
super
and I
suit
think
scene from The Incredibles.
yeah. And then, like, unfortunately, like, he teams up with Ty York, our favorite girl.
I love Tyler.
yeah.
I love. I hope we see what happens with her in Phase 3 too, because she just kind of showed up and disappeared.
I want her to team up with Jordana Sparkburn so bad.
But my
Your
favorite
brain,
thing
I love it.
is when she runs into Elzar and they do that force bond, and she sees like what he just went through the night before, and she starts blushing.
And she's thinking about Samara.
Yeah. And then,
So fair, girl. Me too. I would too.
and then,
I would
and then
too.
she's like, she thinks about Elzar too at the same time. And she's like, oh, like Elzar's like, yeah, I you were
It's like,
thinking,
Axe plural.
yeah.
Sorry about it.
Plural.
Plural.
Yeah, and then they both ride a dragon.
It's
And
just
then
How
space dinosaurs, space dragon.
list of characters riding dragons in Wave 2.
it's I gotta tell you, that is the most epic scene in this book. They're riding
is.
dragons and throwing lightsabers at Nile spacecraft.
Like, honestly, that is like the peak of what a show can do in a
That is
film.
And
that
then-
is where it's like, oh, so we really are giving the Old Republic vibes.
Yeah.
And then Elzar Man pulls down a friggin' floating island
In a dark side moment.
in a dark side moment, which I gotta tell you, that
And-
is brilliant writing by Cavan.
Oh,
Yes, and you
it's-
feel the like gravity of it. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, he won that little altercation, but
But
you
what
feel the
was-
cost.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And he struggles with that, and I love how Stellan like finds him and he says, "Look, we'll work through this together because
Yeah.
that's what we do."
Right, that's what we do. We don't immediately write off people who use the dark side. Why would we
Yeah,
do
like,
that? That's
we
so
all
unhelpful.
mess up. We all make mistakes, and I think that's such a valuable
yeah.
thing from this
Yeah.
book.
And
Yeah.
so Elzar gets therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Elzar
gets
does
space
go on
therapy.
therapy. I also want to tackle the how heroic Bel Zettifar is in this book as well,
Yes.
Stop.
Oh my
and
gosh.
how much I thought he was actually going to die in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, because before the Republic Fair gets attacked, a shipyard gets attacked, and it's meant to be sort of a diversion.
Yep.
And Elzar and poor Bel Zettifar, like the his vessel actually, like, the hull is breached, and so
And
you
he's
have this
entirely
moment of,
impaled.
and
Yeah, he's
he's
partially
impaled,
impaled. Yeah.
and so you have this moment of like, oh my god, they just killed a teenager.
Yeah. Nobody is safe in these books.
Yeah,
Nobody.
he does survive,
He
and
does.
then he goes on to be even more heroic.
And
And
even more
even more
traumatized.
traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, while
Listen,
trying to save the ship that he saved at the shipyards.
yeah, and
Which is so.
oh my gosh, yeah.
It's a circle, and it's such a good circle.
This is why they gave Bel Zettifar an emotional support ember.
Oh,
They literally
and I
did.
thought Ember was going to eat it too. Like when she dove down to
Was
save those people, I said,
Yeah,
that's it. She's done. She's not coming back.
Yeah.
but they had to build to the most emotionally devastating part of the book, the end.
So the
Yeah.
Republic Fair is attacked, which I do want to talk about one more thing from the Republic Fair, and that is, and I get this image in my mind all the time. Like when somebody says the Rising Storm, two images come to my mind, and they're both towards the end of the book. And the one is Stellan holding Lena So's body
Ugh.
in his hands.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
have you read Crisis on Infinite Earths, the DC Comics event?
No.
I haven't,
One
no.
of the covers was Superman literally holding Supergirl in his arms.
I have
I
seen
know
that
that
cover
cover.
though.
I've seen
Yeah,
that cover.
and that reminded me so much. I mean, like Stellan doing that reminded me so much of that cover, and it was just brilliant imaging. And of course, Lena's okay.
She she
But it's
has to be in medical care for quite a long time though.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also get this image of in the Rising Storm we do have a journalist who's covering the
Hmm.
Valo Fair.
Mhm.
And so we see quite a bit from her perspective as well, and
Hmm.
also the perspective of her droid, which is always constantly putting a video feed into her brain, which a little bit of a nightmare, but I'll take it.
And she ends up
um,
being a hero in this.
yeah, she ends up being a hero
it's
and
great.
is refuses to sensationalize the tragedy,
Hmm.
which I really respect because in journalism we don't tend to see that.
No, she
No.
Yeah.
really just, and she even tells like the Republic officials, she's like, I'm here just to tell the facts. That's it. I'm
Yeah.
here to show them what's going on. And she does throughout that
Yeah.
entire event and throughout the attack. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because like at the end, like of her scenes, at least, she's like one of the anchors of her actual station is asking
Hmm.
her to like sensationalize it and like ask what
Hmm.
it was like, and she's like, it was terrible,
Yeah.
and she shows s- like she shows some of the footage because the hollow connection was cut off for the
Yeah.
entirety of the event. And it's such a good scene. I love seeing regular people
Mhm.
doing great things alongside the Force users too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so let's go to the end of the book where the Jedi retaliate against the Nihil, and we get the reunion between Loden Greatstorm and Bel Zettifar, which be prepared, people, because this is where the tissues are going to be needed. Um,
It hurts more in the comic.
it
Oh,
oh
Don't
yeah,
remind me.
It's
oh it
so
hurts
it's
so much in
bad.
Oh,
Trail of Shadows.
it
oh just
does.
the and Belle in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Markion Rowe has a thing that is known as the Great Leveler, and he unleashes it upon the Jedi that are attacking the Nihil stronghold. And they attack, and pretty much he goes after Loden Greatstorm.
Yeah, who is already not in great shape. He's been
No.
kept awake for a year.
And tortured.
And
He's had his
tortured.
leku cut off.
Yep.
His leku
Yeah.
cut off, which are sensory organs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like that holds part of his brain matter, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like getting your eyes gouged out.
Yeah, it's rough.
And he holds his own though.
He
For
does
a
hold
good
his
chunk
own.
of the fight.
I'm pretty sure it's just entirely adrenaline.
Oh,
That's the only
it
thing
is.
keeping this
It's the
man alive.
adrenaline. It's the adrenaline and force keeping him going. And then
Hmm.
we get his reunion with Belle, which that made me smile so much. And I actually cheered. And then the leveler attacks.
Yes.
And
You're just left with this moment of like, what the hell happened? Because the leveler attacks, all of a sudden Loden is gone and the book ends.
The leveler comes out, Eldar crashes.
oh yeah, Elzar crashes and almost dies.
Right.
Yeah.
Loden is
Dust.
Yeah. So
but when they find you, all there'll be is dust.
Yep.
yeah. So
Mhm.
funny thing about me reading the end of that book is I was at a function with my in-laws, and
Oh
like
no.
I was bored and I was reading the book, right? And like I'm plowing through just the second half of this book, like because I got to tell you, Rising Storm is a real quick read
Oh yeah.
because it goes from 0 to 60 and doesn't like let up the entire time. So I'm reading it and I'm at that final part, and I get to the end, and like I had to reread the end like a few times because I'm like, there's got to be another chapter. There's got to be another chapter. And then like I look and like I did like this flip like 5 times just to see if there was like another chapter. I'm like, that's it? That's how it ends? And then
Yeah.
like my in-laws were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No."
You're like, I need a minute, please.
Yeah.
I need
Like
to sit down.
Like I
that
ran
was
to the bathroom
Yeah.
to cry for like 5 minutes.
I was driving home from work. And
Mhm.
so it says that final line, and then it just says, "This was an audible production of Rise of the Storm, or the Rising Storm." And I'm just like, "What? Are you kidding me?"
Like what the
What the fuck is wrong
hell?
with you?
Yes.
Yeah, this is one of those books that I had to pull over for a second and cry. Same
Yeah.
thing. Same thing almost happened with the Dark Disciple, except
Yeah.
I was going.
Oh.
I
Oh
was
yeah,
on a
Dark
2-lane
Disciple had me
highway.
sobbing in front of the bok choy.
I was on a 2-lane highway in the middle of the woods, keeping an eye out for hogs.
Couldn't really stop.
Yeah,
No.
couldn't really
So
stop.
let's move on here to book 2 of Wave
Shut it.
2, and that is Race to Crash Point Tower. This is the funniest book that they've ever written in the High Republic. The
It gives us
Drengir are at the funniest. Go ahead.
it gives us the perhaps the greatest little guy of the High Republic.
Ram,
Phase
John
1.
Ram.
Ram
Yes.
Jomaram.
Clap for Ram.
I have to really like protect this kid at all costs.
It gives us Ram Jomaram. It gives us Vernestra Rowe. It gives us more of Lula Talisola and Zine Marala and Cantum Sai.
Yeah.
Give us
It's
a bunch
just
of little creatures.
Yeah. Oh, the
Yeah.
Bond
All the little
Brax.
Star Wars
Bond
I
Brax.
forgot
The
Bond
Bond
about
Brax.
Brax. The Bond Brax.
And how can you not
But
love Ram's droid either?
Oh my gosh,
Ugh.
I
And
love Ram so much.
and this is the funniest the Nile have been. I mean, not the Nile, the Drengir have been.
and the
They're
Nile.
hilarious.
They are hysterical in this book.
They are so good.
We are working with other meat to defeat this meat because this meat promised other meat. And like Ram's like, what?
Like,
See,
uh,
I don't think the Dreadgear would put that much thought into it, but is it hilarious? Absolutely.
Oh, it's great.
absolutely.
It's so funny. And it's so action packed too. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
action packed. And
And yeah,
and we also get Ram's interaction with Ty Yorick because like we don't really get that much
So good.
in the Rising Storm.
Yeah,
He
in
got
the
one
Rising
line about this
Storm,
kid.
Tyoric is just like, oh man, this kid is there too, and like I have to help him out. And meanwhile, Ram is just like, oh yeah, I'm really helping out this adult Jedi.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, look at this pretty adult woman. I hope she
Yeah.
really thinks I'm cool by the end of this. I'm gonna go help her out. And Ty is like, this little twerp is gross.
Yeah. And all
Yeah.
he wants is just somebody's approval. That's all he
So
Yeah.
wants.
he
no.
gets
Oh,
it
He
gets
does.
it.
with
He
the
does.
Starhopper Padawans.
Which is amazing. That Daniel pairing him with the Starhopper Padawans was a
Mhm.
So good.
brilliant move.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Absolute
Brilliant.
brilliant move. Because it because after Race to Crash Point Tower, all of us were like, we need more Ram. Like we need
Mhm.
more stories with Ram. And then he
Uh-huh.
said, well, check out this next issue of High Republic Adventures because he's in it.
Mm-hmm.
And he holds his own in High Republic Adventures.
He
He
does.
does. He canonically invents Wizard.
He does. He
Yeah.
does. It wasn't me. I'm sorry. It was
It was not Jake.
no.
I do have
No.
my other water
Jack.
bottle over there. I have a wizard sticker from Celebration that is in honor of
I
Ram.
love that.
Yeah, my
People are always like,
first
oh, like Din. I'm like, wrong.
wrong, yeah.
Ram Jomo.
It is Ram.
Mm.
And even like Cantum Sai says, "Oh, wizard, is that a thing?" And Ram goes, "Yeah, I just made it up." And Cantum Sai's just kind of like, "Good on you, kid." Like,
Cool.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good
all
for you.
right.
They're just like, you know what?
I like this kid.
This is why I work with the Padawans.
Yeah.
Cause
Yeah.
y'all
And also,
This is a funky kid. I'm gonna adopt him as my own.
he's
Yeah.
also the first Star Wars character we've seen on the autism spectrum too.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
love that they embrace that with him because he sees the Force completely differently and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
we haven't even talked about all the Jedi see the Force and how. Okay,
Oh
I
yeah.
That's for another
uh,
night
Yeah, it's
while we're going
so
through
good.
this. But yes,
We,
yeah.
we can just come on another night and co-host and just talk about the intricacies of the
that's
Force.
fine. Actually, I
Yeah,
would
Yeah.
love to do that.
I
Especially
would
as
be so
we
down.
especially as we kick off phase 2. Like after I get back from vacation, I would love to do that actually.
I will be taking notes in our
Yeah.
upcoming books.
Yeah.
Oh
I think
yeah,
I'm going to have to as well. I'm
Oh,
expecting some
oh,
Force weirdness.
I plan on
100%.
annotating the crap out of this book.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Little
have so
flex
many
right there
clips.
that you have it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
By the
Sidebar.
way,
Let's talk
okay.
about your meeting with
Oh, so we can talk
Tina.
about this right now.
yeah.
So yes, I met Justina Ireland, who's actually local in my state. She's from Maryland, and I'm from Maryland.
Cool.
She's actually literally 30 minutes up the road from me. Like
Oh,
she's
that's
right
legit.
up 95.
Invite her
I'm
on the
not gonna
podcast.
say. Oh, I want to. I'm not gonna say where because out of respect to Justina, because
Yeah.
I love her. Um, so she was attending this book fair today called Halloween Fright Fest or Halloween Book Fright Fest or something like that, and it was actually literally 8 minutes down the road from where I work at the airport. And so she's like, "Yeah, I'm heading down to this thing," and I said, "Oh, well." I jokingly tweeted out to her saying, "Hey, why don't you stop by and give me a copy of Path of Deceit while you're on your way?" And so she tweets back saying, "Friend," and I'm like, I'm at work at BWI," and she says, "Friend, I will gladly stop by BWI. You let me know where you are, and I'll give you a copy." And so I was just like, "Yeah, I work in the cargo facility, yada yada yada." And then she said, okay, well, she gave me a link to her contact information on her webpage. And she's like, here, just message me on here. Tell me where you're located, all that other stuff. And she's like, and I'll stop by. So I told her where I was located and everything. And then I also told her, I even offered to pay for the book, like after I got paid this week. And I'll send you money for the book, like after I get paid. And she's like, don't even worry about that. Um, she's like, and then she was talking about how, because airline employees have been working nonstop since this pandemic started. Like it's been
Yeah.
crazy. She's like, you've been working hard enough. You deserve some awesome. So I give her my address and everything. Sure enough, around 11 o'clock, she shows up and she goes like I see her pull up and like I go outside and she goes, Eric, and I'm like, yeah, Justina, and she goes, yeah, and then I said, hey, how are you? And then she goes, do you want a hug? And I was like, okay, sure. So like we hugged, and then she had two books with her and then a poster. The second book with her was a signed copy of Mission to Disaster, which is really cool. And then the second book was was this, which I'm not gonna read this until tomorrow. I'm not gonna start reading this till tomorrow. I have to keep telling myself that.
Have you read the previews yet or no?
I read one of them, and I was like, I can't read any more of this. Like, I have to wait until the book's out. Um, so she gave me this, which I'm so excited to dive into, and
Oh yeah.
then she gave me another little thing here, which I was so floored that she gave this to me. Um, they handed these out at Celebration, and this is autographed by all of the luminous beings in the High Republic or authors in the High Republic. And it is. I love this poster so much because of Phil Noto's art, but I love this even more now because it's signed.
Mm.
Um, and it was just so amazing. So I cannot thank Justina Ireland enough for just everything that she's done, but it was just super super awesome to meet her today. And I was kind of having a bad day at work, and then her showing up like really made it like the best day I've ever had at work. Like,
Oh yeah. And
No,
Love
straight
for
up.
those
that.
of you who aren't in the Starlight Beacon Transmissions like server, out of nowhere in the High Republic discussion channel, he just posts a selfie of him and Justina Ireland. And
And
I was
everyone's
at
like,
lunch
wait,
with my
what?
parents.
mhm.
I was at lunch with my parents and I just had to drop everything for a minute. I'm just like, holy
Literally,
cow.
I was like, excuse me? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are
she asked me too. She's like, "Do you want to take a picture?" I was like, "Oh, sure."
yeah?
Like, so we take a picture, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm so short," and I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm so tall." Like,
Really?
but it was so. Uh, I mean, you guys met her at Celebration.
It was, yeah, she was great. It was, well, she jump scared me. If it's literally because they took like a big group photo and
Yeah, I
people were
remember
lining
that.
up and whatever. And I hear someone and they're like, oh, can I come in by you? And I look, it's Justina. I'm like, oh, yeah, girl, okay.
Yeah,
And she was so lovely. I mean, they all were. And like Leah and I had the same experience with, we were talking to Kevin because we were both there as Lorna. And he was like, do you guys want to take a photo? And we're
yeah.
like, you're asking? And it was, I think, like, they are some of the loveliest group. They are maybe the loveliest group of people. Um,
Yeah.
they're great.
Before we get to the rest of Wave Two here, I said this earlier, and I'll say this again. They are, and Georgia, you said the same thing. They are the nicest people, like in the Star Wars community,
Oh
besides
yeah.
you all, that I've ever met. I will say, like, when it comes to like people like involved in production stuff, they are the nicest people I have ever met.
Oh yeah.
It
It's
was there was
because
yeah.
like it's because they are so nice and they interact so much with all of us that like we tend to forgive them for all the horrible things
Oh
they do
yeah.
emotionally to us. Uh, yeah.
I met Charles Soule before the High Republic at Baltimore Comic Con, like when he was
Mhm.
writing Poe Dameron.
Oh, that
And
run is so good.
and his Poe Dameron run's amazing. But like he also has written some of my favorite DC stuff with Red Lanterns, and his Daredevil run was incredible like a few years back. But
Mhm.
he is one of the most humble people you will ever meet, like when it comes to meeting him at a convention, because like you just thank him and he's thanking you for thanking him. Like,
Literally, like
yeah.
it was. I mean, again, like to not to be like Lee and I were at Celebration, but
No, it's
it was
fine.
that is the issue was basically they were like, hey, like all of you because they did a whole meetup and they were like, any of you in
Yeah.
costume come up to our signing and we have stuff for you. Like go up and the guy's like, well, you have to have gotten a ticket, and we're like, well, we were given express permission to show up.
Yeah.
They were being really obstinate about it, and it was a whole issue. And it literally just was the point where we went and found people that worked for Penguin Random House who were like, you can get in.
Yeah.
It was a mess. What meant is a group of half of the group of people in costume were really late to get in the signing line.
Yeah.
And they waited, I want to say an hour or an hour and a half longer than they were booked for to make sure they had time with each of us. Like, not just like signing, like talking to us,
Yeah.
answering questions, taking photos.
Yeah.
And also, they ran out. They were like, every cosplayer gets a signed copy of Light of the Jedi from everyone. Julia has it.
That's
And
awesome.
they
Yeah.
ran out. And myself and a couple other people, my friend is Marcion, Isabella, who was Court, who won the costume contest,
I loved
other
her
people,
costume so much.
we didn't get them because they were out. And we were like, bummer, whatever. And the public, the guy, Michael, who, like, helms the whole initiative,
Yeah, Michael
came up
Siglain.
to us and was like, yeah, Michael Siglain was like, heard the issue. I got you. We're like, what? He's like, meet me at this place at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we show up. He's like, yeah, I had them sign these for you guys. Gives them to us. And we're like, you didn't have to do that. And then he proceeds to talk to us for like 30 minutes, just like out of like wanting to get to
Yeah.
know us. It was
Yeah.
such a like, oh my God kind of moment.
Yeah.
When it was just like, he was just like, we appreciate you guys. And like, he was asking, he's like, oh, like, where are you from? Like, what do you do? And it was just like, it was such a moment of like, oh, these are the nicest people that I've
Yeah.
ever met. I like, because you always say like, never meet your heroes. But like, in this case, like, they are genuinely like one of the nicest
Oh,
groups of people.
Yeah.
I've said this only to a small group of people, and you're one of them, and our viewers are going to be them too. And I said this to Justina earlier today. Um, those five, along with my wife, which I thank the powers above for my wife every day. Between them and my wife and this community, this story, this community, and these writers and my wife helped me get through one of a very dark time for me.
Mhm.
And I told Justina that earlier, and she said, "Well, I'm so glad that we could help you with that." But it's true, like this pandemic was rough
It it
for all of
was.
us. Um, I didn't see my parents for over a year and a half. And it was tough. Um, like I saw them through FaceTime and crap like that, but it's not the same. But this, but meeting them, like interacting with them on Twitter and interacting with all of you and going through this story, it was like I found family again.
Yeah. And it's genuinely all of this that
Hmm.
it, it really makes the High Republic feel like we're in our own like super positive bubble that
We
like
are.
is
100%.
untouched by the dumpster fire that is Star Wars discourse.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's insane to see how many people hate on the fans that are enjoying the High Republic. And it's like,
Mhm.
dude, I'm not going after your crap. Don't go after what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Also, just like it's fun. Like it's
Yeah.
funny. Like we were like people like I got plenty shit on
Hmm.
for celebration posts, and it was just people like you're a shill, and I was like, and like moving on. Like
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
wish I
okay,
was.
yeah, like okay, I wish they were paying me to like do this. Like I am just loving what I love, and like
Mhm.
honest, like people really
Yeah.
feel like they can yuck your yum and they can ruin that yum for you.
Yeah.
With the High Republic, they can't. Like
No.
people can be mean to me on the internet like all they want about oh Disney's paying you, oh it's bad. I'm just not gonna care.
Yeah.
Hey,
I
moving on. I love what I love, and I think that's what's so great about this community is because everybody feels the same way.
Do you know how
Yeah.
much hate mail I've gotten over the High Republic? I've gotten
Oh
tons.
no, I got some in-person ones at Celebration. People were like, "Oh, are you like this other character?" I'm like, "No, I'm." They're like, some people thought I was like Major Henri from
Oh,
Tour, which
yeah.
A lot of people
yeah, I
thinking I was
mean,
Hera.
completely different. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got Hera costumes, and then I was like, "No, actually, I'm learning from the High Republic." And people would be like, "Oh, the High Republic with the Rock," and I was like, "Yeah, with the Rock, yeah." And they were like, "Oh, okay. Well, I heard it's
Uh,
bad," and I'd be like, "Well, you can walk away then." Like,
Yeah.
well, you're wrong.
Yeah.
yeah.
All the
I'm like,
books
"Well,
are
you're
available
wrong,
over
but
there.
the door's over
Yeah.
there." Yeah.
There's the Penguin
Yeah.
Random House booth over there. Why don't you crack open a book?
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. They were giving away Light of the Jedi, and I was like, hey, go over there, go get one.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
it's so wild because I'm an officer in my university Star Wars club, so I hear all the different takes and like every time I hear like they're trying to push an agenda, I just pull the like Uno reverse card. That's the whole point of Star Wars.
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Like Uno
Let's
Reverse
get
Card is based on the
political.
Vietnam War, and Uno
yeah,
Reverse Card, all of you Revan fanboys, literally
Oh
that game
God,
introduced that game
if I
introduced the first queer character in Star Wars.
yeah.
if I hear
Sorry,
one
like it did.
more if I hear one more damn thing about Revan, I'm gonna lose my shit.
Uh,
Like
Listen,
seriously,
there's
I'm
a
tired of
difference.
hearing about him.
I'm a KOTOR fan.
Oh no, I am
I
too.
always have to differentiate. No, I was gonna be like, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those.
Yeah, I'm the same
Whenever I
way.
tell people,
Oh, do you
Like,
know who Revan is?
I'm a big fan of Revan, or
uh,
well, her actual name is Vernestra
Ernest
Rowe.
Rowe.
Yeah. God, how
yeah,
many
True.
fanboys are you pissing off right now?
all of them.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about I've been reading about the Mandalorian Wars because I
Yeah, that's true.
unfortunately have to have an Old Republic reference in my current Star Wars D&D game.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but one thing I noticed was how Revan on Wikipedia is constantly referred to using they them pronouns
Hmm.
because in the game you get to choose what gender they are.
Yeah.
And so like it fits perfectly and I hope if they canonize the Old Republic and bring Revan back, they use they them pronouns.
Well, they've Revan's mentioned in Shadow of the Sith, so
The
they
name Revan is mentioned,
Just
but I
the
yeah.
don't
name.
think a
Only the
gender is
name.
ever attached to
No,
No,
it.
we in
no,
canon it's just the name,
they
and we
just
know they
say
were a
Darth
Sith.
Revan, and that's it.
Mhm.
But yeah, they don't say their gender or anything like that, which is perfectly fine with me. Like,
I
Yeah.
don't want. Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking
um,
of KOTOR, though, Gravity Well and Out of the Shadows.
yeah. So
I
let's
screamed. I had my
actually
KOTOR girly moment. I
let's go
screamed.
with Out of the Shadows here.
Yeah.
This is Justina Ireland's young adult novel. This
Yes,
is
yes,
the
yes,
third
yes.
and final book. Oh no, no, Tempest Runner would be the last book
Third
in
out of
phase
four
Yes.
books.
in phase
Before.
two. Or wave two, I should say. This book's
Mhm.
great. Introduces us to Sylvester Yarrow. We get the return of Nan as well from Into the Dark.
Yeah.
And
And my beloved.
then we
And
also get Wreath, Vernestra, Imri, and I believe Comac's in the book too.
Comet comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Comac does return.
Comet
Yes.
comes back.
And this is a fun one. Plus, we get to meet Sylvester's scorned lover and her giant cat.
And
Jordana.
Sylvester's mom,
And we get to meet
Sylvester's mom.
Sylvester's mom, who may or may not be dead.
And
Sylvester's mom.
mom's girlfriend, Lorna D.
Yes.
yeah, let's not
And
forget about Auntie Lorna.
we
See, Lord,
also
like, it's-
meet the lady who's boinking Marky on Row as well.
Yes, Gira
True.
Star.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Gira.
Gira.
Which I'm so glad
Can
Maggie
you
isn't here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this now so that like Maggie can't yell at me because she's not here.
She can't defend herself.
Girasaurus, I question your taste in men so very much.
True. So
I'm
true.
so sick and tired of hearing about Maggie and her love for blue men. I mean, I love Maggie to death. You know I love Maggie to death. She's
It's
amazing.
We love
okay.
you.
Yes.
Haven't
We had a-
heard me talk.
We had a running joke because she was like, "Oh, I might go on a celebration like last minute." I was like, "My friend
Don't
is here
even
as
get me
Marcion,"
started on
and
that.
she was like, "I'm flying out," and I was like, "Yep, that tracks."
Yeah, she texts me and she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I got a ticket at the last minute." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, I'm good. I'm flying out." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And
It
I'm
was
like,
so fun though.
"Oh yeah, I can't imagine. I wish I was going to
Yeah,
London. I'm not, but it's fine."
Yeah.
It's-
Hey, if you want to,
We could do a London episode.
I
the London
would
episode,
love to have you guys from London.
there is a High Republic Airbnb that we are all a part of.
The High
Yeah.
Republic
would
Hype
love.
House.
We should actually do an episode with you guys from the Hype House. I think
No,
that would be a lot of fun.
12 of the biggest High Republic fans. It's
That
Yes,
would be a lot of
um,
fun.
So
All in Discord.
are we all of us
All in a
Discord,
single frame.
Yeah, in a
Single
single
frame,
frame. Should we wear the High Republic Hype House shirts I made?
Can you, hey, Faye,
With the High
can you
Republic
actually
Hype House
send me one of
pins
those?
that I make.
Send you
I
one.
need to. Yeah, we'll send you one. I need to
Thank
make a
you.
spreadsheet to get everyone's sizes so I can actually put the order in.
No, because I really want
Understandable.
one of those shirts. Like, I think
We'll
that
get
would
you
be
one.
amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah, we'll have the shirts, we'll have the buttons.
Oh yeah, I want a button too. Like I
Oh,
like
of course you'll
hype
get the
me
button.
up. Like,
Yes.
But anyway, so this is
The Shadows.
I will say Out of the Shadows is actually a very slow burn of a book.
It is, but it's
It's
so
sort
much more. It's a really good character development book.
No, it is. It is.
Like
It is.
every character in that book, like yeah, there's not as much action, but every character, you like get the nitty gritty of what's going on in their
Mhm.
brain,
Even
and you
It's so
understand
good.
their motivation.
even the Gungan
That's why I think,
professor.
yeah.
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 Like
Go ahead.
there's and I think that having the slow book in the middle here was very refreshing because it gets you
Yeah.
a little bit of a break before shit goes wrong.
Oh yeah.
Because
So-
it goes
Georgia.
very
Go ahead.
People say, yeah. People saying it's a slow book, wrong, because it sets up so much for phase 3. I'm an Out of the
Oh,
Shadows
yeah.
lover. A couple weeks ago, people were doing like their definitive ranking of the books. Out of the Shadows was in like everyone's bottom 3. I was so mad because I'm a character-driven person. The characters we get in Out of the Shadows, new and old, are some of my favorites in the entire initiative. Just for what they represent, and also in terms of like you know, like Reed's journey, Renestra's journey as well.
even Nan.
Nancy's Nan, exactly, and like
Man,
also
Nan
it
definitely
sets up
has a change of
so
heart in that
much for
book.
phase
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
I love Nan
It's like-
so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nan, I love Nan. I can't wait to see where she ends up.
I will. Yeah. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Just
Nan
saying,
is
they said
Yeah.
Faye, go.
Oh,
I will say this. I'm sorry, Faye. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nan.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay. Nan is like I wasn't super fond of Nan in Into the Dark, but like seeing her complain about Chris united us. We are the
Girl.
same person now.
Yeah.
Homophobic little.
I will say this though. Out of the Shadows is is mid tier for me. I enjoy it. Like I've enjoyed all these books, honestly. I think that they're all very enjoyable. I'm going to give you my thoughts on Fallen Star in a little bit, uh, because I have some mixed emotions about that book.
I have thoughts too. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Mhm.
But it's a great book. But Out of the Shadows is a great book, especially for character development, and
Mm.
it still has some very funny moments, and it's got some great action in it, especially at the end with the gravity well being blown up.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, how have we spent this entire episode without mentioning Mary Santeka at least
I was gonna
once?
say we gotta bring her up.
Yeah.
Would have killed us
Because
if we hadn't.
this
She's an
is
amazing character.
yeah, she's just this like old lady in a pod who gets electrocuted to stay alive,
Rest in peace,
basically.
Queen.
And
Pickled Skywalker.
she pickled Skywalker, yes.
Skywalker.
Which
Uh,
go ahead.
and so like this is when we see Vernestra's force visions in hyperspace really come into play because Mary Santek is calling out to Vern throughout the story, and so we have that like, what is this happening? And then Vern finds it and
Yeah.
follows it and gets that last path, and I loved it so much.
I actually love the tie-in to the Santeca clan that they do throughout
Yes.
this phase. Because Lor Santeca is like one of my favorite sequel trilogy characters, even though he's in the one movie. But if you read Shadow of the Sith, like he is awesome in that book. Um,
Yeah,
so
the Santekas and the Grafts, their rivalry is something that can be so important to me.
The Capulets and the
Um,
Montagues.
Yeah,
If
I
we-
love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we need
It's
is
to
a
give me
Romeo and
more of that.
Juliet with that.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I was
because
gonna say
yeah,
Romeo and Juliet in Star Wars. We got that with Lost Stars, but I know what you
And
mean.
we're also getting
Yeah.
it with,
getting it with Convergence.
Yeah.
and kind
Which
of also
unfortunately,
Path of Deceit.
unfortunately,
Oh,
if
these two are star-crossed
Yeah.
lovers. That's
Oh,
all I'm gonna
yeah.
say.
yeah, which
Yeah.
unfortunately for Convergence, if the preview for Battle of Jeddah means anything, definitely a Romeo and Juliet ending. Let's just put it that way. But we can hope. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
The Shadow is my beloved. It's gonna be so relevant. I'm gonna have my vengeance when everyone on High Republic Twitter is like, the Shadows meant so much to Phase 3. And I'll be like, yeah, do that. We do that.
The
It sets
only
up
reason I
so
had
much.
it ranked low is because there had to be something at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
boy.
can't
fair.
rank everything top 5, even if I wanted to.
Yeah. I
So fair.
refrained from doing rankings because I knew I was just like, I can't choose a bottom.
Like
Actually,
I
I
said,
could actually, but it would be super
I did my top-
controversial.
pick-
I
Picking
did
my
my top
favorite.
5 and I refused. Yeah, I did my top 5 and then the rest were random order.
I'm just
Yeah.
choosing
I
my
can't.
favorite books from each wave, honestly.
So
Justified.
Yeah.
Fair.
So let's actually move on to Tempest Runner, which is an audio drama, but we do get the script
Yeah.
for
My
it.
number 2 in all of
This-
Phase 1.
This story is so friggin' good.
We talk
Um,
about how audio dramas should be the future of Star Wars. I'm sorry, it's true. And I'm not
It's
just
so
saying that because
true.
Leah, Faye, and I are currently doing a Star Wars audio drama podcast.
Yeah.
We must plug.
Fun fact. Except we have to replace the kissing sounds because the ones that they used in this drama were bad.
Bad.
Oh no. Yeah, Tempest Runner's kissing sounds are not entertaining.
We're not it.
They're very wet.
So wet.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Have you
Tempest Runner
tried
is so
kissing with
good.
sharpened teeth? I'm just saying.
Tempest Runner is so good, you guys. Get Lorna D in her Anastasia arc.
It's Lorna D
Like
at
we
her
get
Lorna
Lorna
D.
D. Loved Lorna. We get Lorna D going to court mandated therapy. We get Lorna D being a girl boss. We get
Yeah.
we get a whole deconstruction of the prison industrial complex that is really nuanced, actually.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah, we get Pineda being horrible. So
Yeah.
we do.
what more
And
could you want?
it makes
And we get a guy named
Lorna-
John.
we do get
Oh,
a guy
good
named
God!
John,
We
and
did get a guy
it,
named John.
like Lorna in this book is constantly getting offered a way out from
Yeah.
this path that she has gone down, and I love that she consistently chooses no, I don't want that, and especially considering how many villains get redeemed in Star Wars without actually like working for that redemption. It's nice to see one just choose to be evil and not get redeemed.
But
Yeah, which
We
I think
love
is a lot of
honestly,
we love
go
her
ahead.
atrocities so much.
Honestly, like
yeah.
I don't really consider her evil though.
She's not.
She's an
She's
Like
not.
antagonist for
she's an
sure.
antagonist, absolutely, but if anything, she's more of an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's like the Confederacy of Independent Systems.
Yeah,
In
they're
a
not
lot of
really
ways,
Yeah.
bad guys.
she is objectively right and justified.
Yeah,
Hmm.
It's just the circumstances of
she's
it
been
and the way
screwed
that she goes
over.
about it
Yeah,
ends
Yeah.
up, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But like, just
Like
fully,
if my enemy Opal Rancisis hadn't thought, what should I do with this person I just freed from slavery? I know, put her in a military camp and
Pretty much forced
strip
her
away
back
whatever
into
is left
slavery.
of her
Yeah.
identity and yeah.
But
Yeah, and honestly, I love Abyss Runner for the fact that Lorna is just a menace.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it's so, and you see her get offered the way out, and she says no, thank you.
Nope.
She flips you off, and honestly, like, good for her.
Yeah.
And the ending, so I mean,
oh,
John,
with the
like Star Wars
gunshot.
character's named John,
Yeah.
is so good, and like especially with the fact that like you were very much in his shoes because you want to believe in her,
Yeah,
and then she absolutely backstabs you. You're like, yeah, go,
Yeah.
and then you become Seston. You're like, yeah, I'll defend you with my life. You go, girl.
but
Yeah.
I don't think she killed him though. I don't think she killed him at the end.
That's the fun part about audio dramas. You
Audio
never
dramas.
know. You never know who gets shot, and that's very relevant to one of the scripts I'm working on.
because my whole thing is that he doesn't do anything to like really like push her over the edge like Orbelin does. Like she flat out
Evelyn.
kills Orbelin because of the embarrassment that she suffered.
You don't know that.
Yeah, I
We-
mean you
we
don't
don't
really
know.
see Orbelin die, but she
They said he's gonna be still be relevant.
she takes out Orbelin
Mhm.
after the embarrassment of the Republic Fair. With this counselor on the prison ship, he's just looking out for her, so I don't think she killed him. I
But
really
he's
don't think she
also
did.
he's this microcosm of every man that has ruined her life
Thank you.
That's true.
in the
Yeah.
past.
Thank
That
you.
is true.
He is Bala. He is her father. He is Operancisis.
Yeah.
He
Mhm.
is all of the other cadets at Karita, which, by the way, great Violet Valence
Oh, I love
reference.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Hashtag
Balance
Valence Nation.
reference.
Well, also Solo.
Mhm.
Solo.
Hashtag Solo Nation.
I love Solo.
But he's this microcosm of every man that's made her life worse. Every authority figure, every romantic sexual partner, and just
It makes the discussion about whether or not she did kill John so controversial
Yeah.
in
Right.
a way.
It's Tempest Runner's Cabin Scott really hit it out of the park. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and like he knows he hit it out of the park. And Tempest
Yeah.
Runner is just like Leah said, there's so much nuance to it. I think it gets overlooked a lot for the fact that it's an audio drama. And I think that's really what makes it so good is because you're not inside her head.
No.
That is exactly what puts us in John's position for a majority of the book. And that's why it's so, and then when the ending comes, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
You don't know what happened because we're not inside her head. It's perfect because that's what the genre is meant to do. or the format.
It is an excellent example also of how to do a compelling flat arc for a character.
Hmm.
Yes.
She doesn't get better, she doesn't get worse, she stays the same.
Yeah,
And it's perfect.
but it just
It's
tells her
great.
backstory. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, and like, but the fact that it is a flat arc is part of what makes it so interesting, because
Yeah.
there's so many ways that it could have been like,
Yeah.
she's going to go and become like this horrible monster tyrant person, or she's
No.
going to change her ways, and the fact that she chooses, no, I'm going to choose freedom in the way that I know it.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose like all of these, I'm going to choose my comrades, these women who have been ruined by society in the same way that I have.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to choose going back and sticking it to one of the men who has hurt me the most. Marky, I don't know. Microcosm, yeah, representative of the rose in general. And the best way that I can stick it to him is by continuing to be a thorn in his side.
Hmm.
Which we see in Fallen Star. He
Yeah.
very much realizes that she is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, honestly, good for her.
So let's actually move on to the final piece in Wave 2. That is Edge of Balance #1, or Volume 1. This is the manga written by Justina Ireland. Well, Volume 1 is written by Justina Ireland. And
Yeah.
it's a great short story. It's only like 145 pages long. It would take you about 30 minutes to read. And we see a Wookiee Jedi Master with Arkoff. We get Lily Tora Asi in this, and we get more Drangir fun. That's about it for Edge Balance.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Balance
simple.
one.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Both-
Edge Balance 1.
Both one.
It's pretty simple. And then I would say that this next piece is actually the soft launch for Wave 3, and that is Trail of Shadows.
Oh,
Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh, and I
It-
forgot Monster at Temple Peak, which is a Ty York backstory.
So good.
Yes.
Tywork.
Yes,
It's underrated.
great.
Love it.
Yes.
Icon.
Yes.
But Trail of Shadows. So
Trail of
We've
Shadows.
we've already seen how much I like spies and politics. That also transfers over to I really like noir.
Yes,
This is
so true.
the best detective story I've read in a long time.
So good.
Yeah.
Wish Star Wars had more of it. It's so good.
The Coruscant Knights trilogy was that way. And that was really good. So anyway.
But yeah, it's so good. I love Trail of Shadows. I wasn't expecting to. It's because I was like, oh, it's new characters. We have so many characters already. I came out of it and I was like, that emotionally wrecked me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Emmerich,
Yeah,
So satisfied,
one of
but
my
in the best
favorite new
way.
characters.
Yeah, and Daniel Jose Older said it best when he talked about the importance of what is not being said in that comic and how much
Yup.
like blank space we get.
Yeah.
The silent moments between Emmerich and Cian.
Mm-hmm.
It shows their partnership that's
Yeah.
growing, and yeah, it's perfect. And we also get the most iconic song out of the entire thing, which
Oh,
is the
no.
lullaby.
Correct.
That
And it's, I mean,
panel gave me nightmares for a week.
it's perfect. And like the fact that like the Jedi who sang that, American Talon, is from Dalna. Which I will point out at
Yes.
every opportunity because it is insane.
Oh yeah, the
connections.
cork board is going
Cork board is
strong with that.
cork-boarding.
Dalna,
I-
magic sauce planet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So true.
I started off my like introduction to the High Republic with that lullaby because I thought it is so important.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it
'Cause-
is.
Because it's the perfect example of like these rhymes and these folklores working as a living memory of something terrible that has happened.
Mhm.
So
But-
true.
But the people who tell the story themselves forget, and so it just becomes this ominous thing.
And
But it
still
is a
gets
warning.
Jedi
Fallen
Lost,
Star.
where the nameless, all that lives on is it's a ghost story that is told.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
love
no, I'm gonna
that
have nightmares
it's not even just in the stories that directly relate to the Nameless.
Yeah.
It's in Tempest Runner.
No,
Yeah.
it is. And
And Lorna yells at Lorna is like, shut up, like,
yeah.
but
What-
it's there and it's creepy as hell.
But I have to say, this I can't say enough about this series. I don't want to get into it because it's so spoiler heavy. Like I
You
want
have to
people
read
to
it.
read it. Like
Have to
Fallen
read it.
Star,
It's-
I'll spoil, but this, no, I will
No,
not
No.
spoil
so-
this.
It does not have the same weight if you do not read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also I've seen people ask like, if I only have time to read like one or two things before phase 2. First thing I'm like, Trail of Shadows.
Shadows.
It is
Yeah, I would say Trail of
Shadows.
Shadows.
Yeah.
I would say Cavan's Run and Trail of Shadows.
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
because it sets up everything. I would say I would actually throw in Charles Eye of the Storm in there too.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Because
So,
you need to understand the Evreni.
yeah.
Evreni,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, Trail of Shadows, so good. It's so good.
oh yeah.
So I will also add in that Trail of Shadows has the distinction of being written by Daniel Jose Older, who writes so many hugs into the things that he
does.
writes. And there is a lack of that otherwise in
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
I will
And
tell
like
you,
it's really nice to see the Jedi, even if they're, non-attachment, whatever, they're still affectionate. They're
Mhm.
still caring.
I will tell you, there's something very wholesome in everything that Daniel Jose Alder writes in the High Republic.
Definitely.
A lot of his now, not all of his characters are innocent, and we see
Right.
Emmerich and Cyan do hook up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Cantum and
yeah, but
Yeah.
the thing is
Yeah.
that their relationship is so innocent and wholesome when it comes down to it. That
Mhm.
they're two people brought together by by these circumstances that they can't control, and they've got to learn to work together and to live together, and that's the whole point of that story. And
Yeah.
it's also investigating Loden Greatstorm's death.
Yes.
So
it starts with the most devastating series of
that
panels.
Yeah.
But I love that it's in the rain though. I love that
Ah.
rain is
Oh,
falling.
it's beautiful.
It
Actually, might be my
is.
so
favorite drawn comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the art in
Like
that book is amazing.
Stunning.
Yeah.
the fact that it's in the rain, it just makes it feel like the universe is also crying with us.
Hmm.
So true. So true.
So we're
What's-
over 2 hours here, but
We are.
What's next in the
but-
order?
Say
I
la
gotta
vie.
so next
figure
in
out
the
what's
order is we have the Fallen Star, then
Mission to
Disaster,
Disaster.
and then we have
Ev-
Midnight Horizon and Edge of Balance 2, as well
And
as
Eye of the Storm.
Eye of the Storm.
Yes.
So Fallen Star, this is
Where's he?
where we get pissed off at Claudia Gray for okay.
For killing everyone.
I don't okay, look, I don't hate this book. I enjoyed this book quite a bit.
Mhm.
However, I get it, some people had to die in this one, but there are two characters that she kills off in this book that should have survived this book. Actually,
or
three
have-
characters. Three
Yeah.
characters.
Or- Or they should have died in different ways because
Yeah.
the ways that they did had no impact.
So, all right,
Hmm.
let's get into it. So, Starlight Beacon is crashing, the Nameless are attacking Jedi, all this fun
Mhm.
stuff. Orla Jareni's death is so freaking pointless in this book. I get why she does it because it's to drive Comac in Midnight Horizon,
Yes.
Mhm.
but it still
The-
feels so pointless.
It feels so out of character too.
It does.
I
because
wish she
Orla-
died another way.
It feels
Yes.
a little bit fridgy.
She should have
Yeah,
gone down with like 12 Nile attacking her.
Really, like I
Or
feel
the
like
Raftars, or
Yeah, she should have gone
anything
something
out
like
with the
quicker. It's like,
Raftars.
yeah, uh, the way that she died just
Because
here's
she's
the
yeah.
my point with the Fallen Star is like if I actually was making a tier listing, the Fallen Star would be on the lowest because
Yeah, me
the
too.
emotional points did not hit for me because I hit that tension peak and nothing actually relieved that tension, and so
Nope.
nothing was actually hitting correctly emotionally, and
No,
that's
that's
why
true.
the ways that like Orla, Selen, Chansey died, like it just felt pointless
I will
Yeah.
say
and
I will always
didn't.
be a defender of how Chansey died because I do think it's setting up a lot in the future.
Oh, it's
It
setting up
it is
Elzar's fall.
I do,
Elzar for
but
definitely
Sylvester
it's
as
not
is.
that the
well.
way that she died is the problem. It's that the setup to it, there was too
It's that.
much.
I agree with
And
you. There's
and
too
it's
much.
also
Yeah.
really
Great.
quick too.
Yeah,
It
like
is so
It's
quick.
really. I did
I
reread it. I was like, wait, what?
I straight up like did not process that she had died until I had
Yeah.
logged into Twitter
Well,
after I
that
Yeah,
read
and
it.
I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
and
Yeah,
for Orla to die off screen just didn't make sense either.
yeah,
And she breaks all of her rules.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Claudia, you established all of these rules that Orla follows. And like even in that situation, Orla wouldn't break those rules. Like she would have
No.
backup with her. Um Now when it comes to Stellan's death, I get why they did it, but
Hmm.
he still
Makes
had
sense.
it makes sense, but he still had so much more room for development.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of us, our issue comes about when she says that Stellan survived the first book and then she added to it when I
Yeah.
was like that would
Well,
not
no.
be the fix that you needed.
Well, no. Claudia said it was the other authors who told her Stellan had to die.
Yes.
It wasn't her reading her draft and going, "I'm gonna kill him." It was everyone else going,
I
"We
get
gotta
it,
kill
death
him
by
off."
committee. I get death by committee because
Yeah.
they
And
all created these characters.
yeah, and that's why I'm just like I don't think we would have as much of an issue if we hadn't known that.
Yeah.
Uh like because I was fine with how Stellan died, in all honesty.
Same. And then it
I
I
was
was
think it's
too.
very dramatically appropriate. I think, like, yes, he
it
had
makes
so
so
much
much
more
sense.
room for development,
It
but like
it
the
sets up
That's the
fact that he
point.
had all of that room is what makes it tragic.
He is the
yeah.
fallen star.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
it is all in the name.
Yeah.
Uh like that's why I don't care. I really like don't mind how Stellan died. It didn't hit properly because of aforementioned tension
Yeah.
plateau, which
Mhm.
that's a pacing thing. It could have easily been
It
fixed.
yeah, it feels
An
like
attempt was made to fix it, but it didn't work necessarily as well
I
as it
I
did in Into the
I
Dark.
will say this, and like I said, I'm not knocking Claudia's writing because she's one of my favorite Star Wars writers because of Lost Stars and Bloodline and all
Yeah,
of these amazing books that she's written. But there's there's no room to breathe in this book because like once the deaths start, they just keep
they don't stop.
piling up. Um
And with that note about the deaths piling up, I do have to hop off. I am a death piling up. This has been
okay.
lovely. I love you all.
All right.
All right,
Thank
you
you
have
so
a
Unfortunately, I
great
much,
do go.
night.
Georgia. I am
But
so sorry that we
oh,
ran
you are
over.
fine. This has been a blast. I love Mission to Disaster. I love Eye of the Storm. Those are my other thoughts. Daniel Jose Older, you wrecked me with Edge of Balance Part 2. Night.
Yes. Good night, Georgia. All right, so we're gonna wrap things up here in just a minute too. But yeah, so the Fallen Star, good book, entertaining book, but just I we all
Would have
have
been
issues
better.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, could have been
Um,
better.
and that's fine. Like you don't have to. You can like everything, but you don't have to
Yeah.
like 100% love everything. Especially
Mhm.
when it comes to the High Republic. This to me is the weakest book in the series so far.
Yeah.
Um,
Which it's hard to nail a finale when we start as strong as we
yeah.
do in Light of the Jedi and the Rising Storm.
All right, so let's move on here to Mission to Disaster. This involves Dalna and some earthquakes that
Mhm.
Avon Staros is kidnapped to help facilitate.
Yep.
In which we are also shoved back in with Vernestra and Emery, which that it's a fun story. I will say this: it's fun to see Emery with a Tuca.
It sure
Yeah.
is. This is also where we meet the spicy noodle stand.
This is the
The
They-
spicy
spicy
noodle
noodle
stand
stand.
that gets
yes.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We meet it in its death.
hmm
Uh,
Emery's so
This is
devastated about that noodle stand.
that's why I
absolutely.
remember it so much.
Yeah.
But we also get this is Avon Stars's Galen Urso arc.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is
It's
absolutely.
that pursuit of science that really just gets her making the most dangerous things.
Yeah.
This is also one where it sets up a lot of things for phase two. Because
Yes.
it
Yeah.
takes place on Dalna. We know that Dalna is one of like the linchpins of phase two.
Yep.
It sets up, oh yeah, the Jedi aren't trusted here because of something that happened like 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's like, not
Yeah.
Yeah.
super excited to see that happen.
It will be
Um,
really interesting to read after
Yeah.
phase 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, not too much else to say about it.
It's a real quick book again.
Real
Like,
quick.
It
yeah.
is like
Um,
I got it as a replacement for my Out of the Shadows audiobook because I didn't like the narrator, so I just read the physical,
yeah.
and it was really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
The narrators for these young reader novels have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that brings us to Midnight Horizon, which once again Daniel Jose Alder writes one of the funniest Star Wars books you'll ever get. Plus, actually, the most emotional of Wave 3.
Yeah. Like we are deep in Ram and Reap's head as Ram is dealing with depression over everything that has been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like look at this perfectly good Padawan that you gave trauma and
Yeah.
mental
And
illness.
it's that it's really showing like this is how far Reef has come, where Reef has gone from that kid who's just kind of stumbling around on the Amaxine station. It's like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. He takes on this like older brother
Yeah.
leader role
He's almost
because
like,
Comac and Kantok are like off doing their own thing
yeah.
for
Yeah,
a lot of this book.
they like Ram and
And
Reap have become their own little duo.
Yeah,
right,
like
It,
and
Reef
Reef
becomes the
has to be
master.
like right, and he
yeah,
has to support Ram and be like yes, it is horribly unjust. Everything happening. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have had to go through it. Like it's horrible. It's horrible that these people are making light of it, doing a
Yeah.
masquerade dressed as the Nihil. But you're still a Jedi.
Yeah.
yes,
And
You have to feel your feelings. You can't just ignore them because then they'll bottle up and explode.
mhm.
You have
yes,
to feel them,
Hey,
but you
Katrina.
can't
Sorry, go
let
ahead.
them take
You were saying
over.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say this with this book, there are some big revelations in this book, especially with the Nihil
Uh-huh.
being as
yes.
far into the core as they are,
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy. We also get this Lord of the Rings Helm's Deep moment in this book with Yoda showing up at the shipyards, a
Mhm.
la Gandalf
yeah.
style.
And for like reference for everyone, Yoda has been going on this little like Dalna adventure that we don't get to see at all.
No.
He- So
Right.
this is literally him just appearing back from nowhere.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's an iconic moment, and then Yoda gets a moment of silence with
Mhm.
the end with everyone, which is
And
Yeah.
this is also the book where we find out truly how Lula and Zine feel for each other.
Yes.
It
And
finally
I
comes
love
to
it
light.
so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, it's great.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
This book is, with the exception of Alyssa Wong's Dr. Afra run,
Mhm.
the single gayest piece of media in Star Wars.
Oh no, it it is. It
It,
is.
it is.
And I say that with all due love and respect.
Oh, this is literally just a fact.
Oh yeah.
It is. There are the most queer characters in it,
Mhm.
and they're all handled very well.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And
Uh,
with
And
the utmost respect.
the utmost respect.
yes, and it's all of this is happening while Cantum and Comac's adventures dealing with politics and also Cantum telling Comac the story of his gap year to follow the circus.
Oh yeah,
and
their
his
gap
boyfriend.
year
That was
is so
amazing.
good.
Yes.
It was so good.
Cantum canonizing the Jedi gap year. Uh, they're just so good in this book. We got so much of them in this
Yeah.
book,
Yes.
and um, yeah, and it's just very interesting how they're trying to tell this story, being like, well, you know, things happen. You have to learn to love and let go. Like that's the way of being a Jedi.
Yeah.
And what Comac takes from this isn't, okay, yeah, love and let go. What Comac takes from this is, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't do
This
that.
is the crux of Comac's realization that
Yeah.
he's no longer ready to be part of the order. And like
Mhm.
it's great that Cantum is the one who, in telling their story, it brings this realization to Comac. And
Yeah.
it while I do wish he would come out of the woods, I do understand why he does run into the woods.
Right?
I just want to get to one funny moment in this book, and then we'll move on. And that is the sting with the Bonbrak and Wreath and Ram on the rooftop.
Yes.
It is the most ridiculous thing I have ever read in a Star Wars book, but it makes me laugh every single time I think about it.
Yeah.
Literally so much joy. That and like the fact that Zine just becomes a pop star for a little
Oh
bit
yeah,
and people are dressing up with like
Well,
little paper tendrils.
and no
It's
one
so cute.
questions it.
no one questions
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
because it's Corellia, man. Anything
yeah,
can happen on Corellia.
exactly. So
Yeah.
This
yeah,
book also emotionally devastated all of us with three
yep,
words: missing, presumed, dead.
yep,
Yes. I've already referenced this
And
yes,
episode, but
it's Lula and it's Farzala and it's
buckets.
Buckets
Yeah,
and
oh,
it's
it's pretty
not
much the
mentioned, but
entire
Bibs
stuff.
and
Yeah,
Pack
yeah.
and
yeah.
Cham Cham.
There's a lot.
There are so many who
We just don't
we'll
know.
see. We have
Um,
to wait at least a year and a
yeah.
half, maybe even 2.
So
So
let's.
what's next on the list?
So next on the list is Edge of Balance Volume 2. This is just a
Oh, right.
continuation of Edge of Balance Volume 1, where we find out that the Nihil were behind the Drengir attack on Banshee.
Right.
Yep.
And this is where we lose the Padawan that is assigned to Lily.
Kieran Shin.
Yeah.
Yes. Which I wasn't.
Uh,
I mean, I was more affected by his death than I was other people's deaths.
Yeah.
I was very
And
effective with his
Yeah.
stuff.
I think the reason it's so effective when he dies is because we joke a lot about say High Republic authors seeing a Master Padawan pair and just going, what if they lost their master?
Yeah.
So we expect it to be Lily.
Yeah.
We
Like
expected
so
it to be Lily.
we expect
And
it
it
to be
builds it
Lily,
up to
and
be Lily.
yeah,
Right. The
and
whole book is
Yeah.
her interacting with the children and interacting with the other masters and interacting with Lula and Zine who's holding hands. And like and it comes around
Yep.
and this is where like killing the character kind of off screen, like out of the focus, works really well. Is
Oh,
when
yes,
you
it is. Yeah.
expected it to be someone else.
Yeah.
yeah, because that moment pulls the rug out from underneath you,
Yeah.
and it's
Right.
very emotionally effective.
Just like it pulled the rug out from under Lily.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then that Lily is like obviously broken by this
Mhm.
and
yeah,
Sav Malagan is there, and it's just like we have to keep. We can't.
Yeah.
We have to keep going.
Yeah.
So the final thing on our list here is we have Eye of the Storm, which is a two-part comic miniseries, all about Marky and Roe and
Mhm.
his origin, as well as what he's doing before, during, and after the events of the Fallen Star. I'm gonna go real quick through this one. Um, I don't want to give too much of his origin away because it's very fascinating. I think that you should
Mhm.
read this one. But let's just say that when it comes to the Republic, he not only blows up Starlight, but he blows up a bunch of Republic ships in hyperspace as well.
He blows
Yes.
up the Republic.
Yeah, he pretty much blows up the Republic.
Yeah. And oh, it's so cool. And we can see how all of it stems, like, not only just from whatever happens with the Roe family and the Jedi. It it is like a fundamental, like, it's this rolling snowball effect of
Hmm.
trauma being pushed down upon each new generation of the Evereni,
Mhm.
all
Yeah,
because of the Great Storm. I'm studying these comics so in depth because, as well as Path of Deceit when it's eventually out, because I'm making the Evereni species for Star Wars 5e, and so all of this is super fascinating to look at, and
yeah,
it's a story of family trauma.
yeah,
That's really what we're getting.
yep. It is. And it ends on an explosive cliffhanger that we now have to wait a year and a half to resolve. Um,
It does give
any,
us a year and a half to theorize, though.
yes. Speculate responsibly, folks. Uh,
Yes.
anything else? I'm sorry that we moved through those really fast at the end.
In fairness, we did ramble a lot about Phase
Um,
1.
yeah. Yeah. Anything else? We were talking about like what are the essential things to read before phase two, and we
Yeah,
said Cabin's Run, Eye of the Storm, and um, Trail of Shadows. We're forgetting the very important fourth thing that you need to read, which is the Galactic Bake Off Spectacular.
yes, that
Yes.
is very
Yes.
important. Yes. I want to
Um,
Because
also say
with
the
all of
Jedi
that,
Rumble, the Jedi Temple Rumble too.
the So
yes.
that's one thing I was going to actually seriously mention is the Great Jedi Rumble race.
Yeah,
That issue. So the Jedi are like, okay, we need a little bit of levity in this. At the same time, it's setting up how the Nihil are getting so deep into the core,
yeah.
Yes.
and just that contrast really good.
That and Buckets of Blood wins that race by
Buckets of blood,
shoving a bunch of children over. It's amazing.
as he
Yep.
should.
Yes.
As
That's
he should.
also the issue that has the panel that I cling on to for dear life, which is Ishnar and Farzala flirting with each other.
Oh yeah.
Love them. Um,
You
yeah.
you have captained that ship.
I am the captain of Ishnar Zala, and no one else will take that from me.
Yeah.
It's
So
okay. I'm the captain of something else. I'm
so
not gonna say it on YouTube.
okay. Okay. We'll put that on
Something
the
less
after
wholesome.
hours show. Um so that is actually going to be it for us this evening.
That's it.
That is
Yeah.
it. We've gone way over 2 hours. I
C'est la vie.
Yeah,
C'est la vie.
exactly. I got to
But
be up
well,
at
there was an
3:30.
entire
Yeah.
year and a half of content to go over,
That
There
in
is
was.
true.
fairness.
There was. As you should, Leah, as you should. Um
Mhm.
that's what Darth Sasker? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's it for us this week. We have one more show for you next week before I go away for 2 weeks. I mean, I'll still be on Discord and stuff like that, but you won't see us live on YouTube for 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to thank Leah. I want to thank Faye. I want to thank Georgia. Uh, you all have been amazing. Like I said, You all are welcome to come back anytime that you want as co-hosts. If you want to join as co-hosts, let me know because I will gladly have you on a permanent basis. Like seriously. Um that's it for us this week. We will see you next week as we will recap 2 episodes of Andor. So get ready for that. But until then, may you always fight for light and life. May the Force always be with you. And remember, at the end of the day, we are all the Republic. Have a wonderful